All right.
Ready to go? Or you'll work on it while we're,
It's going.
okay. Okay, this is the Deerfield Conservation Commission, and it is 7:05, and we're gonna start. And we'll do some introductions. Since we have a crowd, this is maybe the biggest crowd in the history of our meeting.
No, but it's good for this year.
So I'm Sarita Fry. I'm the chair of the commission. And Judy, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Judy Marshall, I'm the clerk.
Eric Berglund, Financial Officer of the Commission.
Healy Andriozzi.
Ben Minor, new member.
Kate Hartnett, old member.
And should we have the audience introduce themselves?
Yeah, why not? Just for the record, typically in Deerfield, boards tend to meet and sit behind. I have a value for more of an inclusive attitude here for our Conservation Commission, so I encourage people to kind of be more in a circle, which is why I'm sitting on this side. And we feel that most of our work is voluntary and collaborative, and that's a reflection of how we're sitting. So, and in that spirit, it would be great to know who else is in the audience. There's a variety of people, but you may as well know who's here and why. So Fred, you want to start with you?
Okay, Fred Borman, University of New Hampshire Cooperative Extension, recently retired Rockingham County Forester, but still working part-time for UNH.
Phil Bilodeau, Nottingham Road.
Forestry Commission.
Yeah, oh yes.
Jim Page, resident.
Ellen O'Donnell, I'm a teacher at the school, and I'm here about a grant opportunity between the commission and the school.
Sylvia Von Allen, I'm with Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, but I'm here as Deerfield's town planner.
Great.
And just for the record, Fred is here about a survey that UNH is conducting.
Okay, great. So thanks for those introductions. We usually take just a few minutes at the beginning for visitor comments, if there are any, and then we start with our visitors rather than our regular business, so that once you're done with your reason for being here, you can stay if you want to keep having fun with us, or you can leave. So are there any visitor comments before we start with our actual visitors that have been put on the agenda?
Any questions? Someone from Eversource coming?
Yes, my understanding is that a representative from VHB will be attending at about 7:30. They came late to the agenda, so we didn't want to waste their time. We put them after some previously scheduled people. And Sylvia's here for a variety of things, so since she's had a long day as well, we'll try to work out maybe she's here to talk about some zoning changes, and we'll try to do that just in advance of 7:30 so we can have the VHB conversation and let Sylvia get out of here too.
Any other questions or comments before we start? Okay, so Ellen, I think you were on the agenda. You were the first to get on our agenda for tonight, I believe. So we'll start with you. And as you said, you're here to talk about a partnership between DCS, the Deerfield Community School, and the Conservation Commission. And this would be through I believe, a grant through the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions.
Yeah, so I think we had kind of gotten jointly notified about this possibility, and actually last year was the first time they notified us, and it was too late to do something, but this time the second notification was in the spring. So the program, I actually didn't keep a copy of the partnership, I have it in my thing, but the partnership is this, and I didn't make a lot of copies of this because I knew that a lot of you had gotten sent it, but it's basically to come up with a project that is going to benefit the community and cooperative with the school. And there isn't really any, it doesn't have to be any specific kind of project. It's really just something that will benefit it. So what I did is, Haley actually very nicely met with me last week and gave me a lot of great ideas. And I put together a proposal here. It's missing stuff. That's what I need from you guys, and if you would like to do this. basically, the overview is, I thought if, I teach 7th and 8th graders, I have 5 classes, and what I'd like to do is take them to the town properties, and I'd like to discuss what town properties and how many with you. But basically, get them there, have them do some inventory, so they would do, I wanted to do muck codes, because that's a globe project at Citizen Science. They use that information to make sure their satellite imagery is correct. And the reason-
Ellen, for our listening public, what's a muck?
I honestly don't even know what it stands for. It's a vegetation code. I don't remember what it's.
It's forest types.
Yes,
Yeah.
forest types, yeah, it's the habitat type.
Yep.
So, and the nice thing about it is that it's international, and I'm gonna be collaborating with a school in Germany and one in Finland. So they're gonna do the same thing, and they can compare these codes, so we're talking apples to apples. But the other thing is, Haley had the idea about using iNaturalist. That will help the students identify the vegetation, so we'll do that as well. And then what I want them to do is take that information and then decide what kind of animals would live there, what kind of wildlife would live there. And that's actually a science standard, is to see those connections. So they would go back and predict what kind of animals live there. And then we'll do, later on, we'll go and we'll do some tracking, and I'm gonna put up some trail cams on the sites, and so we can see what kind of animals live there. The other thing is, one of the standards I really wanted to cover was how it's on the second page. It's this one: evaluate competing design solutions to maintain biodiversity and ecosystem services. So in other words, it's looking at what's the value of the habitat to mankind, and how can we maintain the biodiversity and these services with human impact. So, Sarita, I know you had talked about possibly invasive species. So if we pick a couple properties that there's invasive species that maybe we can do something about, I'll take them out and they'll map the invasive species. And then, so they'll do that, they'll do the wildlife. And then what I'd like to do is in spring, have a community day where we invite, I'm hoping to get a lot of parents, getting students, getting people from the community, and we can take care of whatever the problem is that we determine on the sites, whether it be invasive species or some other kind of human impact. So let's see, what did I forget? So if you look at the budget, the budget is for, there's 500 for materials and transportation, 500 to you guys, and then I talked to my school, and I figure it's gonna cost me $75 to take a class out each time. And I'd like to take them at least 3 times. So I budgeted the 3 times. Want to purchase 3 trail cams. I already bought one because I want to make sure it works and that I like the type that it is. And then they give you $100 for a celebration. So from the grant money, I think the Conservation Commission, if you guys are willing to give 3, because you had said that maybe you would do that, 375 from the 500 stipend, that would cover the transportation one time. The 500 that we get will cover the transportation one time, and my school will pay. I've already talked to my administration about it. Trail cam, I've already bought one. We have enough money in the school to buy another. Actually, I could probably buy 2 more, but it depends. I don't know how many trail cams I'm gonna need. If I have to buy one more, I'll buy another. It doesn't matter. So I guess, let me just stop here and ask if you have any questions, because I just threw a lot at you.
When's the deadline?
It has to be in by August 31st, which is why I've tried to get as much done as I can possibly get.
Oh,
to
this is
here.
great, yeah. And I noticed, so I have just a couple of comments, I don't know if they're questions. So I noticed there's a section here for Conservation Commission support, so I can write a little blurb for that.
Right. I know, like, when I was talking to Haley, she says she knows a lot about tracking, so I'm hoping that maybe that's something that she could be out there at least one time.
Yeah,
and
I'm
have
happy to help
the class and help with the tracking.
as possible.
And just to
yeah.
clarify, that's wildlife tracking.
Yes,
Right,
wildlife tracking, yep.
yeah.
Yeah, so happy to provide that assistance.
I mean, in terms of the budget, I guess I should ask my colleagues on the board or on the Conservation Commission, but there's a 500 for a stipend for the commission, but I really wasn't sure what that would go towards. So I had suggested, I mean, Ellen had indicated that this would be more expensive than what was allowed under the budget for the school, and so I thought that since we're partnering with the school, that the Conservation Commission could give some portion or all of our stipend to put towards the school budget so that they could do what she's proposing to do. But I didn't want to presume that, so that was a proposal.
What are you referring to as the stipend amount?
So within the New Hampshire Association for Conservation Commissions, they have,
They offer
Oh.
500 for the commission itself, but
Oh, I see. So the grant would bring $500 to the commission.
right,
Well, we can just turn that around, I think. yeah.
that's what's my proposal,
Sure.
yes.
Okay,
Yep.
that's
And
not
actually, the way I
easy.
have this set up is you could still have $125. Wanted to give you something.
That's 25%.
Well, I think we'd be happy just to pass the whole amount through. That's personally my feeling.
Yeah, and
I
I don't
agree.
know, I'd have to look at this closer, whether we need to put 500 in the budget and then pass it on to you, or purchase $500 worth of materials to give to you. I don't know how, or if we can just say we're going to allow you to take that 500 and put it directly towards your budget, but we can look at the details and see how we need to do that.
Well, it's important to know that because we have budgeting already beginning for next year.
I believe they give you the money up front. I think it says in the proposal that they,
Well, if
when
they,
you're approved, then they give you the check for the money. So that you
yeah,
have
we
it.
need to have, to spend the money, we need to have it in our budget. They
Oh,
can't just
okay.
come give us money. I mean, it's a donation, but it would go in the conservation fund or something, which.
So actually, it's better if we can just have it put directly into your budget
Okay.
from the beginning.
Okay.
But I'll look,
Right.
we can look at the guidelines here and see what they say.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Okay. So if you have no other questions, the big question I have for you is the property. I have 5 classes, and I don't know whether I should, if you have, like, say, 2 properties that are really, you're interested in doing this work on, I can split up my classes to do those 2 properties. 3 properties, I don't really know what you have. It'd be easier for me to not have a property for each class. I thought about that at first, and I thought that's kind of crazy, but, yeah.
I think that Frank Mitchell has done a biothon on at least one town property and maybe more. Is that helpful to you?
He's done what?
A biothon, where they basically do an inventory of
That's like a
everything they
bio
find?
blitz?
Yeah.
Well, or would you rather have a property that you don't know? Oh, and the other thing I forgot to mention, Haley had this great idea about also having some, and this is something maybe you guys could do, set up a community, some sort of community survey, where if anybody goes on whatever these properties we pick, and they see wildlife, they see tracks, they see sign, they put it in, and then we can collect that data. So the students will have the data we collect and the data the community collects, which would be awesome.
yeah, well, the nice thing about iNaturalist, which is the platform we had talked about using, which is an online data collection mapping program, you know, people could basically upload to that, and then you as a class can see what's been mapped, what else has been mapped in that area besides the effort that you're putting in. So it really becomes additive. So even a simple flyer at the trailhead of any trail on the properties you decide,
Great idea.
telling people to submit right to iNaturalist will allow you to see that data and information. So it's not a big ask if people are already visiting.
And we also have the Trails Club Facebook page,
Right.
and that's pretty active, so we could make a post to that and
Yeah.
give them a link to the iNaturalist.
It doesn't really require any greater coordination than that, but might add something to your proposal to say that community input will be suggested.
Yeah,
So,
plus I love the idea of the students seeing the
Yeah.
community be a part of it too.
Yeah.
I want it to be as authentic as possible.
In terms of properties, I mean, I don't know for the proposal if we need to have that figured out or not. I mean, we have, you know, I would say it would be some number of the town forests, and, you know, they're different sizes and they have different qualities, and so it's hard to know, and they're different distances from the school, so it's hard to know what might be best for your needs. I mean, I think this would be useful for any of the properties. I don't know that we have one in particular that we want to highlight. I mean, I know of invasive species on only one, and it's not a town forest. That's the Lindsay Flanders Conservation Area, and that's a small patch of Phragmites. So I don't know if other people have suggestions for what properties we might select.
In the interest of time, I agree with you. I don't think we need to resolve this now.
Yeah, the only
If
thing
it
is
doesn't matter
I-
to you,
I have to
whether or
have
not-
it for the proposal.
I understand, but whether you want to talk with
Oh, you
Frank
can do
about the
it.
BioBlitz thing, or if that doesn't matter to you, then I would suggest, just for myself, McNeil would be a great one, but that's way up on Blake's Hill. I don't know if that's too far for you.
I don't know.
Because of its location, I think it's an interesting property to get more data on.
Okay, it's one that you don't have much data on.
Yeah.
Is there any other one that you know there's some kind of human impact that's a problem?
McNeil is much less than, very little human impact. So I'm thinking that would be one extreme, and then another would be one where there is some.
What would you recommend for that?
Well, I don't know, we just did a forestry cutting on Dow's Gate.
Yeah, so that one would be an interesting one in terms of really, really
I tried to know the number.
current impact.
Yeah, and the one I like that too, because the trail, I can have one class go one way, one class go another way, do different parts of the same forest.
And if it's, this is kind of an aside, but I have some research going on at Dow's Gate through UNH, so I could come out and explain that to your students if that was of interest, because there's scientific equipment out there where we're measuring soil temperature and moisture, soil properties,
That's
you know,
awesome.
and so I could explain that to them.
Double
All right.
win, yeah.
So if I kind of conclude that I'll look at McNeil and Dow's Gate, those would be the two properties. So at least I can put that in this proposal.
Sure.
Okay, and I think I have everything else I need. So you're okay if I go ahead and send this grant proposal in?
I got a question, Ellen.
Yeah.
When would assuming you're successful with receiving the grant, when does the money get paid?
I'm trying to remember. Can
I
say
couldn't
the
really
percent
tell
paid?
from this.
It's not in here, because I thought I read it somewhere that they give you the money upon, if you get approved, but I can find that out.
Says
Yeah, well, that would
acceptance
be-
notification is September 15th, then they have a pre-project planning, which is a 4-hour meeting, then they have project implementation in the fall. I mean, it doesn't say exactly when.
Well, I'm thinking from a budget standpoint, you know, if it's this year, then, you know,
Yeah. Again, I think the money all will go to her.
That'll
So-
work out fine if you do it that way,
okay, they can,
yeah.
That way you don't have to get
That way you don't
involved.
have to worry
They're a
about
pretty
it.
flexible organization in general, so they should be fine
Yeah.
with just funneling it all together.
I like that answer.
Yeah, I think it's easier
Solution.
for me, too,
Money
because
would
we
go
don't really have
Good.
field trips budgeted in schools.
To the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions, to Ellen.
Oh, okay, so they would give it directly to them.
That's my
And it's,
understanding.
it's a grant coming
Yes.
to us?
If we
Not
get
coming
it.
to us, coming
And then it
to,
would go to them?
it's not coming to us, it's coming to her.
Okay.
And we're her partner.
Yeah, I guess I'm not seeing I'm not figuring the contribution. I'm not understanding that, so that's all right.
Well, it's a partnership in that we will meet with Ellen throughout the fall to implement the project and so on. But I don't think there's any money because we discussed giving our $500 portion to her directly.
Okay, so there is a portion that's designated for DCC? Okay, that makes it clear then.
And
And
we're,
I think the more that, like, if you all personally at some point can meet with my students,
Oh,
it'd be great
absolutely.
for them to know. I mean, that's the whole point, this is to promote future land stewards. So for them to meet you, see what you do, why you have the Conservation Commission, I mean, we can worry about all that later, but that would be awesome.
they can come to one of our meetings.
That's right.
Might drive them away.
I think it'd be really interesting to beat the current attendance. So bring your students, that would be great.
I only have like almost 100, but, yeah.
That'd be
So we'll
great.
set a new record.
They-
New chairs,
But
extra
if we had
chairs.
1% show
problem
up,
to
we'd be good.
Okay.
Maybe the end of the
Extra
meeting,
credit.
interesting.
Um, Ellen, if you want, I mean, you can either, if you wanted to send me an electronic version, I could fill in the Conservation Commission part, or I can just send you some text and you can add that in if, you know, whatever you want
Like I
to
said,
do.
this is a Google Doc, so no problem. I'll send it to you. All right, perfect.
And then if there are any other questions in the next couple of days as you're trying to finalize it, we can do that by email. All right?
Perfect.
Yeah, this will be fun. Thanks.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thanks, Ellen, nice to see you. Sarita, if I may,
Mhm.
given the time, and my guess that the Eversource folks are here, could we have Sylvie do the issue around the zoning, which shouldn't take very long? Because I think Mr. Borman said he's got some flexibility and already has a bunch of information. So if we get Sylvia taken care of on the zoning, and then we can address the issue that she might have some input on at 7:30 with Eversource, she can leave and we can go to Mr. Borman. Does that be all right?
That's okay with you? Okay.
Thanks for your flexibility. Sylvia, you're up.
A topic that gets everyone on the edge of their chair, zoning.
We're
And
waiting.
I
Waiting
should
for you.
mention, Sylvia's a little too modest. She says she's with Southern New Hampshire. She happens to have a title called executive director, so I'm aware of the fact that she has way too many plates in the air to sit around all night here, so we'll try to get her in and out.
It's fine. So as town planner for Deerfield, another hat I wear, this is the beginning of the season of zoning amendments. And I'm not sure if Jerry Coogan, who sat in the seat before me, came and spoke with the different boards, but
No,
I think that it's important to sort of have a chat. Most people don't look at the zoning ordinance or site or sub-regulations, but as far as the zoning ordinance goes, it's sort of the foundation of all building, right? And what you hate to see happen is a subdivision come up and things get built and you say to yourself, oh, I wish we had had a zoning, regulation that prevented X or that guided Y. And so these are the kind of fundamental, I don't want to say restrictions, but guidelines and, that protect water, protect, wetlands, protect Pleasant Lake, protect your various resources. And so I know that it's not that we have a whole lot of building going on, but there could be. And you sort of want to examine rules and regs every now and then just to say, are they great? Are they exactly the way we want them? Or do we want to tweak them just slightly to make sure that everything stays protected? So that's why I'm here. I asked our favorite building inspector, Rick, the other day what he had thought. And one of the things we started talking about was a comparison of a building setback, which right now in Deerfield is 100 feet. Depending on if you're a lot of record and you have a building already on it, then it's 75. If there's like 2006 sort of threshold, or if you're a brand new subdivision, then it's 100 foot. But there's no stipulation for any buffer. So you might not be able to build your house closer than 100 feet, but you could, there's nothing in your zoning that says we want to have a buffer of any size. So I guess, if someone wanted to, they could mow right down to a wetland or vernal pool and it doesn't even talk about very poorly or poorly drained. So very poorly gets really sensitive. It also doesn't talk about, doing a function and values study, that if there's a subdivision proposed or a site plan proposed, that someone would have to do a function and values study to be able to tell us what kind of wetland this is, since we know they're not all created equal. So that's kind of another thing to sort of tickle your thought pattern there and see if any of this sort of raises an alarm, or you think maybe everything is hunky-dory and I can go back to my little seat in the back row.
I've got a question. Shoreland protection, doesn't that help us with wetlands, or is that?
You have a wetland overlay district, and it's called the Wetlands Conservation District, and it spells out its purpose, it defines wetlands, it talks about very poorly and poorly drained, talks about the district boundaries, and it gets into conditional use. And if you want to do homework afterwards, you can look at section 210 in your zoning ordinance, and that's it, starting on page 8. And then it gets into these setbacks.
but there's also shoreland, is what Eric's talking about.
Shoreland, yeah,
Well, I'm thinking shoreland has a requirement. You can't go right down to the water line, right, or to the,
You know,
in terms of taking
that is a
trees.
great question.
No, it's
So,
state.
But I thought that also was applicable to wetlands.
I've never found the state regulations to be extremely protective, but I may be underestimating.
So is your question then whether there should be a zoning amendment that specifies more clearly whether there should be setbacks in addition to the 100-foot building setback that would perhaps spell out what activities could or couldn't be done in that buffer,
I'm talking about more of a buffer, like a no-cut buffer, a no disturbance buffer.
Sylvia, if I may, I'd like to make a distinction, which I think has caused a lot of confusion over decades. A setback is a number. It's the distance from one place to another. A buffer tends to mean a vegetated buffer, which means there's something in that distance, or not, if I may.
That's completely correct. So how you have it right now is you have a structural setback. You can plunk a house 100 feet away from the wetland. My point is, there's nothing that says that any of that area between the wetland and the house should remain natural. I guess that's my concern.
Mhm.
Now, some might say to you, well, like for example, Chester, it's just reviewing recently this summer, a large subdivision proposed. The reason why I was involved was the development of regional impact. They have a wetland buffer as well as a structural setback. Now, some may say to you, well, what good does it do you for a wetland buffer if you can't inspect it? Or, you know, how are you ensured that it actually maintains natural, things like that? So there's that argument. So that's one side of the shoulder. The other side says, get your wetland buffer in there, at least start something. So I guess I'm sort of throwing this on the table and saying, maybe you haven't thought about it, but there's plenty of time. As far as why I'm here now, again, as far as zoning amendment season, in December, the planning board is going to entertain maybe no or maybe 10, we don't know, amendments. But typically every year, the planning board would entertain zoning amendments. They vote on them, whether to support or not, and then if they're supported, they go on the ballot in March, and the whole town votes on them. So I'm early because planners like to start.
Some planners.
Like to start the discussion
plan, huh?
early and plan, so that it's not a last minute. So I guess I'm trying to tickle your brains and say, think about this. No decision needs to be made tonight, but I think in the course of the next meeting or so that you're together, you might say, I like the idea about a buffer, and you can look at other communities and say, that's pretty good, I like that. The other one that affects you that Rick brought up was this notion, you folks have for Deerfield, a requirement for a 3-acre lot, but nothing says how much of the buildable area needs to be contiguous. So you might have it divided up by a stream, a wetland, this or that, and it might really create very little buildable area once you start to impose the setbacks. And so that's another question we are throwing out. I started looking for a good example. Really, planners are thieves, and so we like to borrow from other communities who has written something really good that we might adapt. And so I started looking to see, has another community written a regulation where contiguous upland is part of their lot requirement? So that's another one you may be interested in.
If I may, Sylvia, I have one back for you. This is in section 210.3A, paragraph 2. I'm talking planning board stuff now, sorry, different hat. And what it is an area under district boundaries of the Wetland Conservation District. You're at the bottom of page 9 there.
Mhm.
It says poorly drained soils less than 1/4 acre in area shall be excluded from any definition, provided these soils are at least 100 feet from any wetland.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So I think that is something that actually bears some further discussion, especially looking at Sarita's knit eyebrow. She has a background in soils. And I, as a planning board member, have questioned the ecological wisdom of that statement. It was basically done for other reasons than ecological protection. So I think that might be something, a third thing the Conservation Commission could discuss.
Yeah,
Is that in the zoning?
Yes,
The Deerfield zoning, it's 210-3A?
yes.
Thank you.
yeah, second paragraph. Yeah, so,
You didn't know that was coming. I'm just throwing, you don't have to
No,
resolve that now.
I was
but-
reading that while I was in the back, and I have a question to that too.
Good.
Yeah,
Let's just put it on the list. What do you think?
I would do away with that completely.
Oh, yes.
I've got a question for Kate from the planning board perspective. Say this buffer idea, buffer protection, or whatever you want to call it. Do we have a problem with that in Deerfield? Has there been a lot of, I mean, if people don't
Yes.
have guidance,
Yes,
then
yes,
I
yes,
guess
yes.
they're going to go
Yes, yes, yes,
away.
yes, yes.
There's no
The background,
education.
Eric, the background is that, and this is way before Sylvia's time, it may not even be this millennium, but certainly there was a UNH study, Frank Mitchell and a bunch of other people participated in, I think in 91 through Cooperative Extension, basically doing a review of scientific literature about the importance of vegetated buffers to remove pollution generated by upland activities that humans create to try to protect water quality. And so it's especially important in Deerfield because we're a headwater community. We're way at the top of the watershed. So anything that comes in here affects everything downhill and downstream, which stretches all the way to the Great Bay. And I think given the pace of development right now, a lot of people do not understand the importance of maintaining vegetation between lawn fertilizing or pasture or even just mowing. And so I think that in terms of both permitting of subdivisions, but also in terms of work with the Conservation Commission, I think it's an opportunity over time to get both education and change in practices to try to keep water quality and quantity more protected than it is, based on the science that Cooperative Extension has demonstrated. And then the second thing I'll say is that, again, way before Sylvia, Southern New Hampshire got a grant, and Jack Munn worked on it with Deerfield and Candia to develop some potential ordinances around that. And we had it on the ballot once, and in the absence of education, it didn't go very far. So I think what we need to do is dust it off and bring it up again under the guidance of Sylvia and others.
Capitalize the word education, because that's the key to getting these things through. I mean, we've had so many zoning efforts that, you know, they die in the committees leading, you know, just to pass information out. We don't take the effort, and I'm not saying it's easy to do, and it requires time and money and so on, but these days, you know what communication is. We're fighting everything else. So we've missed some good opportunities with zoning. We've had good proposals, and people didn't know what it was, and when you don't know what it is, you vote no.
One more, Haley, go ahead, but one more comment. I think we're actually in a different era now because the people working on the Pleasant Lake watershed have done such a good job of helping a certain subpopulation understand that if they want to keep their water clean, they got to keep green stuff growing between the land uses and the water. So I think there's a good foothold that we can build on, and that has come up since the last time we tried to do this. Yeah.
Good.
And so
I
Haley,
was just- I could be incorrect about this, but I think at some point in the last couple of years, there was some statewide working group working on forested buffer recommendations. Is that correct? Do you know anything about that? And I'm gonna kind of look at Fred as well.
Statewide,
I know it's addressed in good forestry in the Granite
Mhm.
State, which I don't have a copy with me, but, there has been some discussion about forested buffers around vernal pools
Right.
and adjacent to, wetlands.
Right. For some reason, something is jogging my memory that in the last couple of years, there's been a group that's formed to kind of think about what the recommendations might be. I'm not sure if it's like the New Hampshire Association of Natural Resource Scientists or what level it's at, but something is,
It might be
I'll try and
taken,
dig it up.
it might be taking it to the next step after
Right,
the
exactly.
good forestry practices, because that's in there
Right.
under BMPs.
Yeah.
So is this something then we should put on the agenda for our next meeting, or what are kind of next steps, do people think?
Could you stand to come visit us again?
Yeah, I could stand it.
I think for me, it would be helpful to know where we stand, and then, comparatively, like you're saying, what some other towns have implemented that might be recommended.
What I can do is, I can put in a graph, kind of, what, matrix, not a graph, what you folks have, and then compare some of the communities around you, what they have. And I think really what you all want to do is read the zoning ordinance. And
Oh,
I
Sylvia, you're so mean.
I can put, just this section, if it's more palatable that way,
That'd be awesome.
in an email, and everyone seems to read emails easier. So even we'll make it so it's not an attachment, I'll make it part of the body of the actual email. So it will be very easy, and then we'll try to work on that, and that'll be your homework, if that's okay?
Yeah, that'd be
then
great.
I'll look at, in my calendar for a month, what is it, a month from now?
It's
I'm
usually
not
every
quite-
second Monday, we're meeting a week later than we normally do, so whatever the second Monday of.
That would be 11.
September 11th.
Let's do it a month from now instead of the next meeting, so that gives you, no, then you won't do it, will you? Would you prefer then to, let me think.
Well, that would be October
9,
9th.
which is
Which might
Columbus
be-
Day.
Which might be
Too
too
far.
late.
Too far, okay. All right, September 11th it is?
But just a quick question of clarification. So in terms of getting zoning ordinances written, I mean, that's done by the planning board, right? Or we can feed them
That
information?
is why I'm here, is I would prefer it coming from you to put on a list that they will then consider.
I say we make a proposal to the planning
You
board.
make a proposal,
I see.
bingo.
But you could help us with that proposal, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So good. It's called
Great.
collaboration.
I think it sounds great, and I appreciate the education because I didn't know that we didn't have a buffer ordinance.
I was town planner in Exeter for 16 years, and then I created an annual committee. There was a zoning review committee, and it had members from this group, planning, zoning, historic district, and we came together one time for a few months every year, just to do this. I tried doing that. I got no response, which is why I'm here. And so.
Oh, you tried to do it in Deerfield, you mean?
Sorry,
You tried to do it here in Deerfield?
yes.
I see.
And so, but I also understand like zoning hasn't met for a long, long time. Evidently, maybe issues don't come up, and maybe it's not so important, but I do think buffer.
Sylvia, you're in great company. We'd love to have you come back.
All right, so we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Is it 2?
3 weeks, I
3
think.
weeks.
3
Good.
weeks. I'll correct it then. All right, so
September
September
11th,
11th is
yes.
our next meeting. September 11th.
Just to clarify, I will not be there at that meeting, but I think everybody else can make it, right?
I'm not sure.
I may not be here.
Oh, because good to have a quorum, so.
The
Well-
meeting after that is October, what did you say?
Well, it's a holiday, it's October 9th, which is Columbus Day.
Well, we'll sort that out by email. If we can't meet, if we don't have a quorum on the 11th, we'll move it to the third week, which we did this month. So, and we can let you know that, Sylvia.
The third week in October?
Which would be
September.
18. September, yeah, September
Oh.
18th.
Oh,
If
okay.
we aren't going to have a quorum on the 11th, then
Fair
we can
enough.
push back a week.
Okay,
And we can figure that out by email, so
Right.
we're not taking up time now.
Right.
okay, yes.
Is that good?
Perfect,
Okay,
thank you.
but don't go away,
Right then.
because we're gonna talk about Wetlands Conservation District, I bet, right now, with our friends from Eversource, correct?
Correct.
You wanna come up, grab a chair and come up here? You missed the introduction, but we tend to be quite informal. So if you'd like to just kind of put your chairs and sit over there, we have more of a kind of a circle approach to this than a board approach. We're just a commission. And you guys can come on and join us too.
And so you're Sherry?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Sarita Fry, Chair of the Conservation Commission.
Kevin McCune of Eversource as well. Talk about some of the things that we have going on. So every year Eversource undergoes rounds of maintenance. So they go out and they perform inspections on the existing assets and they identify issues with the structures, whether they are deficient in some way or they don't meet a standard or they have some damage or parts have been recalled due to certain things, and they go out and they replace and maintain those existing structures. So we wanted to come in today because there's a number of projects on 4 different transmission lines that are going on in Deerfield. So there's 4 specific things that are happening. On the C-129 line, structure 3 is being replaced. It's
Does anyone know where C-129 is?
No, I think that we need to kind of step back and have a little orientation. We have some basic questions, which I sent in an email on Saturday. So I think it would be helpful for all of us to get a better sense of the magnitude of what you're proposing and under what program you're discussing this with the Conservation Commission.
So go ahead,
Who did you send the email to?
to me.
Oh, so you got the email?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I forwarded to
I just wanted to make sure we had it, all right.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've got a copy, because it was Saturday, and I doubt that Sherry was sending her email. I sure hope she wasn't, but I don't know if she had a chance to look at it, but other members have copies of that too. So we just need some help with orientation, because there's a lot happening in Deerfield about utilities, and we just want to be sure we're looking with the right lens of what you're proposing.
Right, so this is, as I said, this is an annual maintenance program that's ongoing. So crews go out and inspect the right-of-ways and identify issues with existing assets. So these are existing lines that are in service that have come up, that certain structures have deficiencies for reliability issues, for safety and reliability issues. So we're talking about just the scope of this involves 3 structure replacements and 2 structures that have insulators that are being replaced.
And by structures, you mean poles or?
Poles, yeah.
Mhm.
So
Poles that are being replaced.
let me just interrupt you for a minute, because I am somewhat familiar with the wetlands utility maintenance notification. That's what you're talking about, correct?
Yes.
Judy, that's wetlands utility maintenance notification. It's done by DES, under the Land Resources Management. It tends to be an annual permit, and PSNH, DBA Eversource, did pull one in, I think, January.
What
And
is
since you
it,
said
what is
this-
it again, Kate? I kind of missed you. You said you wanted me to specifically, wetlands, utility,
Wetlands utility maintenance notification. It's one of the hardest permits to keep in your mind in terms of titles. WUMN. Worse than muck.
So you're referring to a specific notification?
I think so, but
Correct.
I'm guessing. I don't know. That's why I'm looking forward to learning more.
Yes.
Because as far as I know, you guys have one already, and you tend to issue them, get them annually,
Yes.
based on the record.
So there are a number of programs that go on. So that one that was filed in January was for vegetation maintenance. So that's,
Was that G-146, that one? Because they
Yes.
yes.
came up and repaired
I thought it was,
insulator replacement.
and I thought it was conductor replacement.
So I don't know so there are a number of different programs that are going on at the same, over the course of the year. So the way that we've been operating under the maintenance sort of utility is that if a project gets, so usually they do the vegetation maintenance routine, because they know which lines are coming up. The routine vegetation maintenance is just the mowing of the right-of-ways.
You're talking about Brontosaurus work, right?
Talking about what?
The Brontosaurus work by
Yes.
John C. Brown.
Yes, yeah. So
That's
they-
not what this is.
They generally file that one.
That's not what this is.
Correct.
And then on top of that, they file other ones as other projects come up. So,
Typically annually, in January.
well, no, they file one, they file it as they come up. So they file the one in January for the vegetation maintenance, and that gets assigned a 1 by the DES. And then we file another utility maintenance notification for the next project, and that typically, you know, they'll just put 2, and it all falls under the same DES file number, but we keep adding on the maintenance projects as they come up and are conducted through the course of the year. So I filed, and John Casey, who was in this position before me, filed utility maintenance notifications for maintenance of these structures. So we had one that John, and I have them here.
So just to back up to
Sure.
say what the maintenance is, so maintenance could be different things. So that one you have there is maintenance. So maintenance always has to do with repairing something that's already there, so it's not new stuff.
Understood.
So that's for reconductoring. So in that, on that line, the actual wire had to be replaced.
Right.
Right? For these projects that Sherry's gonna go over on, at 3 of the locations, structures have to be replaced because they get damaged, just age, insects, woodpeckers, and there's ongoing checking of those, and when we check them. The other project here is for another type of maintenance that we do for the insulator. So the insulator is the piece of glass that keeps the electricity from grounding out on the structure. It's usually the like pancakes of glass. So one of these that she'll go over is for replacement of those insulators, and 3 of them are for replacement of the structures. And that one was for replacement of the wire. So that it's different maintenance
Well,
jobs.
yeah, the reason I want to go into this is because we here are not experts.
Mhm.
You guys, this is your day job.
Yep.
We're volunteers. When I read this, it says, conduct maintenance on the G146 transmission line. So you just described 3 kinds of maintenance.
That's right. So we're always looking at the system. So there's
I understand.
physical, so there's
But what I'm
physical-
saying is your proposed project description sounds kind of global.
It is global. The general maintenance is global.
No, but Sherry is saying you've got 3 different initiatives happening,
Right.
right? So wouldn't each of your utility maintenance notifications be a separate one of those activities? Or are they all under just, give it's okay to do general maintenance?
So we file per circuit.
I think she's saying there are different notifications than the one that you have there that
Right.
cover what she's referring to tonight.
Exactly.
I understand that.
And I
Exactly.
understand, the description doesn't specifically say reconductoring, and it doesn't
No.
specifically say, like on this one, it says, conduct maintenance on the C-129 transmission line, so it doesn't specifically say what the activity is.
Correct. And also, one other thing to clarify, you mentioned Mr. Casey, is he with VHB or is he with Eversource?
He used to be an
He was
Eversource
an
employee,
Eversource employee.
he no longer is an Eversource.
And you're with VHB.
I'm just a contract employee.
Don't say just. You're with VHB.
Yes, but I'm working on behalf of Eversource internally.
Taking John's place until we bridge to get, because
Okay.
this type of work happens all the time. and we
Understand.
can't take a break, so.
We
Sherry
just
came
need,
on
we
in
just
place.
need more introduction because you guys
Fine.
are deep in the weeds of this stuff.
Yep.
This is all new. There's no Mr. Casey, he was with PSNH, now it's you. It says conduct maintenance, but it could be any one of a bunch of things. How are we supposed to know? Or Sylvia of the planning board, how are we supposed to know?
Is that something that could be changed? I mean, in other words, be specific, maintenance of this or that or that?
Are there specific
That's a good idea.
proposals for maintenance that are sort of a sub to this general thing that Kate's holding? Or are there, or are, I think what she's asking is, are you asking, this is a blanket thing to do maintenance, are you gonna give us specific things that you're gonna stick to and not do anything else?
Yeah, so.
Is that, am I right, Kate?
That's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Is this a blanket to do anything you want anytime at any point, or is this like, we need to replace poles?
So that's why we're submitting per circuit. So on some circuits, like for instance, on the 307 line, there are a couple different types of maintenance that are going on at the same time. There are insulators that are being replaced as well as structure replacements. Now on the 307 line in Deerfield, there are only insulator replacements. But along the 307 line that runs all the way to Stratford, there is some structure replacements as well. So when we submit for a circuit, there are multiple things that are happening. So there are different types of maintenance, so we submit for the circuit.
I hear you. So you're saying from your point of view, it's based on the circuit.
Yes.
We're saying from our point of view and for the planning point of view, I think, it would be helpful to know within that circuit, what work is proposed. Make sense?
Yep.
That's
And
what we're all talking
And that's
about?
what we're here to talk about, is
Right.
what is the specific,
Yeah, because
what is
when,
specifically happening in
understood.
this town. So that's why
Okay,
we're
Okay,
here to discuss. So we
Great.
do know what specifically is gonna happen.
but the paperwork doesn't reflect it. So
Correct.
we are
Yeah.
kind of, we're kind of in the dark.
Yeah.
And Sylvia, I think you were going to say something?
No, I'm just thinking, you know, you mentioned, right, 3 poles. So I guess where my head goes is, well, what's the impact in machinery and whatever happens in replacing those? And is there something vulnerable near those 3 poles and that kind of thing? I don't know where the poles are. Is it all on road, or is it cross-country, or I don't even know where the line is, so.
Yeah. So
And also, is it on the substation or is it east of the substation, physically?
So there was a lot of questions there. Why don't we go through, so to answer the general question, yeah, the applications are fairly generic, but we're here tonight to go over specifics for each of what we're doing here specifically. And we can, so you asked kind of a general question, are they along the street? No, they're not. These are, along the street is a distribution type voltage, and the poles are smaller. The work we're talking about here is transmission work, which is usually in the right-of-ways. So this is not along the streets. And some of them are near the station, I think there's another question, and some are not. So
Do you have a
that's,
plan that shows
we
that?
have some plans, so those are generic, some generic answers to your question. Why don't we get into that?
Yeah, why don't we let them make their
Yeah.
presentation, and then we
But
can
I
ask
just need
questions.
context, because we do have this little project called Northern Pass,
Mhm.
and I think if you're dealing with anything related to that project in any way, it goes through a different process.
Yes.
correct.
So that's new, so that's the difference between this work. For Northern Pass, nothing of Northern Pass exists right now. So it's a new project. It doesn't use the same format of permitting.
I understand
All of the
that.
work here is for existing infrastructure that's already there. So it's not it's not a new project like Northern Pass.
Okay, so I'll just go through and then I'll circulate the plans around so everyone can see what we're talking about. So the first project we'll talk about is the insulator replacements. So that is just simply accessing the structure itself, getting equipment in the air, getting a person in the air to replace out those insulators. This work is gonna be done under live line conditions. So, these are 345 kilovolt lines, and so the amount of, the distance from separation to make sure that there's no arcing and for safety purposes, they need a larger area on the ground to operate from versus if the line was taken out of service and they could kind of compact it, so.
So you're just talking about these 3 structures now, which you haven't identified yet, right?
I'm just talking about 2 structures on the
To give you
307 line.
to give you an idea
the
where they are.
insulators.
So this is the station, Deerfield
Here,
Station.
yeah, why don't you,
Right? Yeah,
why don't
I'll
you just
circ-
stand over there
I
so
can,
people.
I'll circulate around, but I just want to give everybody a general.
And I'm
Deerfield
just asking
Station's
if you don't
here.
mind, just stand up over there so people in the audience can see too.
Oh,
Because I
okay.
can't see
Yep,
through your
oh,
back.
I'm sorry, yep.
That's
So
okay.
here's Deerfield Station.
We're all interested, we want to
Yeah.
know what you're talking
There's
about.
Deerfield Station. This big yellow, the red dot is the pole. The big yellow square is where we need to put matting to separate the phases because we're doing a live line. The other pole is right over here. So that is in red outline where our padding goes. The reason it's different colors is because this just shows where our work zone is gonna be, but it's not in a wetland. This is yellow because this shows the matting we're proposing, right? So that's geographically where we are. The right-of-ways here come this way and this way.
So that green area is a wetland, is that
The
why that's?
green is what we delineated as a wetland, yes.
Yes, and it's not a complete delineation, obviously the wetland continues, but they only delineated the portion that, for access.
So that's the orientation, right? Is everybody fine? And
Yeah,
then pass it
fine.
around to.
Well, hold on a second, I think there's a question from the audience, if,
So on the 307 line, we are gonna build a pad in the wetlands there, okay? That's a steel structure.
Yes.
Mhm.
So what type of work is the steel structures being replaced?
This is insulator work, so those discs that separate the wire from the pole,
I
They're
don't
just
know
taking
about
it.
it.
they're just taking those out. And they're doing it live, so this is energized
Yeah.
when they're up there. The reason this pad's so big is they have to go in there with trucks while the lines are still electricity flowing. Grab the 2 outside ones, bring them apart, and they send people up here while it's live. So that's why this has to be up here, so we can separate the phases to make a safe zone. But it's
How-
only no ground, no poles being
So how about the brook, the main wetland that's just slightly, it would be to the south, is a huge wetland right, it'd be to your right on that map from where the pad is. There's a brook that flows right through there, and there's an extremely large wetland, about probably 100 feet farther south, the beginning of it there. And that whole area was cleared out last fall. So what's gonna happen with the brook that's right there? And the structure is on the other side of the brook, no, right?
So no, I'm just saying, they're coming in this way. So if there's something down here,
Yes,
Has nothing to
there's
do
a
with this,
major
Joe.
brook and a wetland.
Yeah, that's where- we're coming in this way.
But what I'm
through
saying
here.
is you're building the pad, the structure that's there that you're gonna replace the bells on is on the other side of the major brook that comes out of the wetland. So how are you crossing that brook and wetland area to get on the other side to build that pad?
Jim, would you
Right
go up
here,
and
we're-
point so that everybody's clear about what you're talking
Yeah,
about,
there's-
please?
I know you're going in this
Yep.
access, okay? And just so everybody knows, this is a very old map. This doesn't even look in that area now at all what it looks like, what's happened in the last year. I think this is probably 4 or 5 years ago.
You're talking about the aerial
Right here with
base.
this- Right here with this arrow is in this corner, there's a major wetland right here.
Yep.
And the brook flows out of it, and the brook, you can see it right here. That is going right through the matted area.
Mhm.
So how is that gonna be handled underneath there? That's a major brook. It feeds this whole side of the wetland. It comes out of a huge wetland that's behind Phil's house. Am I correct on that, Phil?
yeah.
So
Yeah, but
what is
just-
being
excuse
done
me.
to protect
We
that?
can build these pads up to, these flow under fairly often.
Well, I
We
can
can build
show you
these
a
up.
place on the other side of the station that was up here
Mhm.
last year where Northern Pass went in to do work. And the maps, they just ran in and buried them, buried the wetland. And I can show you pictures of this area, what's happened recently. Probably a little bit shocking to you.
So that's why we're here, is if there's things like that, we can go back, and I've seen them bridge these over streams like this, and we can make a flow path under these.
Just for
I want
the,
to show you your access road
Okay.
right here. This is your access road. This is what it looks now, going down into the wetland. This blew out a couple weeks ago. We've complained to the state.
Mhm.
I've been there, those are my photographs. So this is your access road. Everything was cleared out last year. What you see is the culvert when the clearing was done, okay? This is now blown out. It's gone down into the wetlands. This is the wetland under the 307 line. So how's that gonna be taken care of? What's gonna happen there prior to any work? It's a mess down there. There's
Yeah,
silt.
I don't know where that is.
Well, instead of writing all this up and coming and asking permission, I thought, why don't you two take a trip down there, take a walk around and look at that area? It's destroyed right now.
And just so you know, there's a certain amount of heat here because we have been trying to raise this issue with a variety of interests. The base that you use is from 2010, 2011.
Can I have this?
You can have that. I'll give you the full set if you pass them around to the board. This is under the 307 line, and there's the culvert. This was wiped out and cleared last fall. It looked like moonscape down there. There's vernal pools at the bottom here that were right in this area.
And that's this
They're all
road here?
gone. Yes, they're gone. That entire area is wiped out. It's turned the corner, it's all flowed into the wetland. So I want to know how you're going to bridge that. I come from a power line background. I've been a project manager before. And the things that I've seen go on in that area down there today, I'd fire every man that had anything to do with it, because I've never seen property and landscape destroyed like what's
No, I
happening
follow
in that
those.
area.
We also have a lot of vegetative management practices,
Mhm.
which are part of the work that you guys do, where Jim also has pictures of tops of trees in wetlands, trunks of trees in wetlands, and the statement from Eversource is, they're not aware of any work being done related to borings which have generated that kind of mess, which is true. Our complaint was not from boring work, it was from the vegetative management, which is what you're talking about. So we hear what you're saying, but what you're seeing is a result of us watching what's happened versus what people have been saying. They're so different, we feel like we're in Alice in Wonderland.
That
No, I
happens,
will definitely follow.
that happens to be the area that was cleared out where you're gonna work. That's the 307, that's where structure 187 is, I think. 189's up here. So this was cleared out last fall, and then everything was just pushed down against the stone wall at the end. There were vernal pools here, active vernal pools. They're gone, they're wiped out. Now you have a series of crushed culverts after this happened, that entire area, and now the entire slope of the substation on the north side is beginning to fail and wash down into the wetland.
So Sherry,
This
I
whole
don't
area
know
is
if you've
going
had any
downhill
contact with
into
Norman,
the
I'll
though?
check
wetland.
I'll check on that.
So, I mean, that's what everybody says.
Probably
"Oh, we're
not,
gonna
based
go
on
out
your
and check,
face.
We're gonna check. I don't see anybody going out and checking for
Right.
any kind of the work prior, and it makes you really wonder what is going on, what's going on. There's the wetland, that's yesterday's photograph, how does that look under the 307 line? You know, pass the pictures around, take a look. So when
Also,
you tell me you wanna build a pad, I think I wanna know specifics, because I've seen what Eversource has been doing for pads and stuff. Run the mats out, crush everything, plug the brooks, so what? We just pack up and we leave afterwards. Down in this whole area there, there's matted areas right here that have been left there rotting away under the 307 and the C-129 line. And it's not long after this, you also have on the 391, which is part of what's going up behind Phil's house, there's another structure that's going right here on the corner. And you've got to go across that brook into the wooded area. I'm sure that whole wooded area is cleared. This was cleared last spring. This area was cleared in the springtime over in here. Then in the summer, and then later in the fall, this was all wiped out. Every piece of vegetation was wiped around the entire perimeter of the substation. There's no longer any vegetation.
Wiped out, you mean by a washout?
Cut.
No,
cut.
vegetative
Cut
management.
first, the ground disturbed, and that's a result of it right there, right down into the wetland, straight
Okay.
down. That's your access road right there. So pass the pictures around, and then I think it's in
Yeah,
order
I'll
for
keep
somebody to
these.
come back and explain to us. what's
And
really
also,
happening
Mr. Bilodeau's in the butter to the south, Mr.
Okay.
Bilodeau here. And he could tell you some of the stories about vegetative management. My understanding is that the utility BMP, which is why we're so interested, that's referenced in this wetland utility maintenance notification, is the BMP for utility maintenance in and adjacent to wetlands and water bodies in New Hampshire, published by DRED. Well, that actually references good forestry in the Granite State, which we talked about earlier, which basically requires maintaining vegetative buffers to uplands. They're gone. So we're wondering which BMP you're gonna use, because the one you say you're gonna use and the one you do are different. Help us understand.
One of the questions, I'm sorry, may I, one of the questions,
and the 307.
one of the questions that Jim asked before was, have either one of you been out there?
No.
No, okay.
So your aerial base is 2010-11.
Well, I mean, whoever made the plans has been out, whoever made the plans was out there. Is it Ty and Bond?
Time bond.
Yeah, whoever made the plans has been out there.
I understand, and I,
Yeah,
what you guys are doing clearly
Yeah.
is stepping into something that you're last to the party. There's been a bunch of people from Eversource ahead of you, and what you're hearing is our experience of those previous
And
people.
frustration, right? So,
And so you are experiencing some of that frustration. And Phil, did you have another question?
No, I guess if Tigan Bond did the plan for you, somebody provided them the wrong base map to work with. They should have gone to Google Earth or gone out there today or yesterday when they took the
well,
file.
so the ortho photo, it's really the parts we really use are the wetland delineations and the pole locations. The ortho photo underlay is more there to give you a basic orientation of where you are, not to give a.
So,
good
but can I ask, so the
representation.
pad as you have it mapped looks, on your current overlay is overlaid over forested vegetation. Was the intent to clear that? And
It's
what I'm understanding is that's already actually
Shouldn't
cleared.
be- Well, there could be vegetation there, but it is within the right of way because the pole is right there. It's surrounding the pole. So the placement of the mats is there to protect the vegetation. So, I mean, it will sit on top of it, but the theory is that the root base still is the same. When we remove the mats, all that will revegetate.
What Jim has described earlier is there's no vegetation there left.
Right.
Go out and look,
Well,
there's no vegetation left.
I'll check up on the current situation, but as far as vegetation, it's not like the wooded area. That is within the right of way where the
The
pole is.
wood,
Okay.
the wood was
Right.
cut off last
Yep.
November and
Yep.
December
Yep.
around that structure. Everything that had any height to it, every tree that was probably in excess of probably 65 feet was cut.
And left on
Yeah.
site.
So how does your permit,
Some in the
who permits
wetlands.
that type of cutting? And who authorizes that? Do you people authorize that?
So if there's routine maintenance, which is clearing away from the phases to make sure there's no danger trees, which involves tree removal. They do side trimming to make sure that that doesn't come in, can't fall on the lines. And then there's also just the mowing of the right of way.
We're
So-
not talking either of those things. This is
This
different.
was all tree clearing, and then there's the vernal pools right there, you can have that photograph. And that was entirely mowed and just literally run down with skidders and backhoe blades for several hundred feet. That's between 188 and 187. Now up at 189, anything of any size was completely cut out of that area last probably November.
Including
Yeah, that
36-inch
could be true.
DBH pines.
Northern Land Clearing did the clearing in there, so just for my own information, I'd like to know who authorizes those people and who pays those people and who oversees those people, because if it's happening like that, I can imagine what's gonna happen when you go into a full mat job and go to do that kind of maintenance. I understand it, I built 500 lines, I've built some of the biggest ones in the US. I would never put up with that.
Yeah. So
I even worked for the company who built most of Deerfield substation before, and I've never seen companies come in and destroy things like they are in that area. And I'm just a resident here.
I mean, I don't have any specific knowledge of what happened around substation. As you said, I'm just coming to this late, so I don't have any knowledge about this. I've been
understand.
tasked just with the maintenance of these
We understand.
circuits, but Kevin is here, he will follow up on this, and as part of the maintenance projects, I would expect that we're gonna be in there with equipment, so we can address some of these issues.
Mhm.
Well, I think that
So what you're
if,
saying is, no matter what we say tonight, you're gonna go do the work anyway?
no, wait a minute, because Sylvia's here, and Sherry very astutely asked a question that no one else has asked before, which is not Conservation Commission, not wetlands, not even wetland utility maintenance notification, but to her credit, she asked the basic question, do you need a wetland conservation district?
Conditional use permit.
Right, a CUP, conditional use permit. And that's the reason it's great to have Sylvia here, because she's talking about zoning, but it also is a question that we are exploring jointly as a Conservation Commission and Planning Board.
I-
So we got
I
the
don't-
people in the room.
I certainly understand what you're trying to do,
Mhm.
but I'm also one of the abutters that they visited on August 17th and said, we will be there
I
in the
understand.
next few weeks.
Are you folks aware of that
We
letter?
will be done by the end of the year.
Mhm.
Yes,
So whether they're getting a permit tonight or not, the guy that passed this out is getting his directions from someone.
Right,
My questions are, who is
Fait
this?
accompli.
Who is this Michael's Power and Supreme Industries that's doing the work?
so
Where are they from? Who are they?
or
How long
what,
are they gonna be there?
more importantly, under what, my curiosity is under what authorization is this happening? Is it a wetland utility maintenance notification? Is it something else? We don't understand.
I guess I'll go back to the vegetative clearing that we understand was taking place. That my lovely wife went to take pictures of 36-inch pines that were brand new, healthy, as strong as could be. And the young man that's cutting them down says, well, these are dangerous trees. And by my wife being there one afternoon, the Eversource guy races to the site and sends the two young men home.
Right.
So they got a maintenance permit there, they just cut along the right of way, whatever they want.
Well, we're throwing a lot at these people. The question for this board and for Sylvia is, are there local permits that are required before this work is done? And we don't know, we're asking you.
right, so do we want to tackle that, or do we want to go over the other projects?
Why don't you go over what permits, that was the question, what permits do we
Yeah.
need?
Do we need a wetland conservation district? CUP, conditional use permit. That's something that seems to be the case, but I didn't know about Phil's letter till now, so maybe it's not. Maybe you guys just can do it.
So, let me give you some context of what the maintenance requirements are, of what's going on. So, there's public outreach, which is the source of that letter. So, public outreach has been tasked with notifying the abutters prior to the work occurring and letting them know that this work will be occurring prior to the work being done. So that's
Is that
the
subject
source
to
of
any
this.
permit?
Within the
For
next
the
couple.
for the notification, no. They're just notifying people that this work is going to be
What, you mean under the
happening
wetland utility maintenance notification?
in conjunction with me in my position, who's responsible for the environmental piece as well as the historic piece. So I'm going and getting the permits needed. Other people are going and notifying abutters. Other people are in charge of the contractors.
Right.
So what I understand then is that if, for whatever reason, you didn't get the permits, then this letter would be void because the work couldn't be done.
It's true,
Right.
Okay.
it's true. Yeah, that's
So
just a,
let's
that's just
get
a
back to which
notification.
permits. Do you need the wetland permit as well as the
So
signalized permit?
let's review
Let's,
this
let's have
real
Sylvia
quick.
take it over, yes,
Um,
because we don't want her here all night.
Permitted, so if you look again, I'm back here in section 210, and in 210.5, permitted uses. Permitted uses in areas of poorly drained soils are as follows. There's a section on agriculture, forestry, and tree farming, wildlife habitat, recreation, etc. Nothing here on utilities. If I go, very poorly is similar. If I go to this section under conditional use, a conditional use permit may be granted by the planning board for construction of roads, other access ways, and for utility pipelines, power lines, and other transmission lines, provided that all the following conditions are found to exist. Now, you're talking, we're in a gray area. Gray areas that they exist, but you're going in and maintaining them. Having now heard this conversation, there's enough red flags here for me to say, I'm thinking you need to come to the planning board for conditional use. And that's based on that I'm hearing there have been impacts to the wetlands. There have been impacts to possibly vernal pools. But what I'm seeing, or not seeing so far, is that we don't know what the existing conditions are. I'm hearing you say that Eversource is committed to using best management practices, but I'm not necessarily hearing that those have been carried out by folks that you've maybe hired to do the work. And maybe that what's great about you have both being here and talking about this with this group is that it sounds like you may recommit yourself to those best management practices and ensure that your contractors will do the same. But I think before all that happens, we have to know where's the access, where are the wetlands, how are they gonna cross the wetlands, what's happening with vernal pools, how are they crossing them, how are they avoiding them?
What's the current vegetation there now? all
What's the
that.
current status? What's happened before that you might correct? Some of this needs to be corrected, I think.
And if I may, according to Mr. Quinlan, all Eversource activity for land clearing, forestry, vegetative management will comply with DRED Cooperative Extension 2016 BMPs for erosion control and forestry, which have riparian management zones with the minimum distances of between 50 and 165 feet, depending on the slope.
Sounds like there's a lot here.
So again, this is maintenance of existing stuff,
I'm hearing
which is
that.
different than new stuff.
No, yeah, it is
It
different, yeah,
different.
yeah,
it
no
is different,
question.
Because we don't, the structure is already there. It's not like we can do this type of maintenance somewhere else.
You're talking
It
about
has to be on that
I
structure.
think,
you're
There's
think,
talking
no
vegetative
vegetation.
management.
We're not here about, I understand the issues with vegetation management, and I took some notes, and I'm gonna follow up on those. These jobs are not vegetation management jobs.
I understand,
So,
but it sounds
I-
like
I don't-
Sylvia is
my
saying,
concern is really access at this point,
so we have access, we can go over that.
but access,
So the questions you asked, we can go over
erosion
that here.
control,
We can go over that
all of
here.
those sorts of
Yes.
things, but I'm not seeing, like, I'm hearing these gentlemen talk about what's happened in the past, how it
Mhm.
existed just the other day, and, you know, I think.
And it's not this body that can give you the permit. I mean, we're not able to give you the CUP if that's what you require.
Right, but
That's
if
a
the
different
issues
committee.
you're saying we need to do that based on past practices, I would
See,
say
this
that.
doesn't say
can
for-
can I just
Sorry,
finish?
sorry, yes, sorry.
I would just say that we will follow up on those. I see the pictures, I understand what the concerns are, I'm definitely gonna follow up on that. But what I'm saying is, if we're here and we can describe the project, the questions you ask, the access, where we're putting protection, this work has to be done, because it's in a state where it needs to be repaired, just like any repair in your house. If there are concerns with past practice, I think it would be better if we conditioned this work to make sure we did this work correctly and allow this work to continue.
But
Right.
all the lead
And-
work for this work has not been done correctly. That's why you see those pictures. So that work is the forebearer of what you wanna do. And it only
I don't
happened, it was even
think so.
ongoing this springtime.
No, I think,
Yes,
The
it was.
work
I
for
have
the
photo-
veg
I have
work.
hundreds of photos.
no, I'm not
So-
doubting that we did work out there. We do work all the time. I'm just saying, I don't think that other work was
Related.
related, like precursor to this. I think that vegetation work was done.
Well, you
Full
cleared out,
vegetation.
the entire side of the substation, about 75 feet wide. You cleared that
I'm not
actually,
doubting
and
that.
you doubled the size of the cutting line.
no,
I'm
but
not
Jim,
saying
what
I'm
he's
doubting
saying
that.
is, that's not related to this management.
That's right.
That's another initiative.
Yes. No, and
It's all related.
It's all part of the biggest.
it is all related to the bigger, trying to maintain reliability, no doubt about that. But as far as specifics, when you do maintenance in your house, I mean, it's all related to keeping your house entailed, but
We understand, we get that.
doing the front steps is not related to doing your fence. I mean, it's all related to the
We
whole thing.
We
But
totally
there are
understand that,
different
Kevin.
things that we need to get done because they're in disrepair. So
I think that
We
you
will.
can,
We need
address those.
assurances that what's going on out there isn't gonna happen this time again, and I don't see it. The activity in the past year down there, Normando, you have the role of Normando essentially. Are they your competitor, are you familiar with those people? So they went to the
Yes,
south.
but I'm in
It's a-
Eversource.
No, all I'm saying, let me throw this out.
Yeah.
They went through, all right? They went right through a major wetland, okay? No mats, no nothing. I happened to take a walk down the right of way, and guess what? The answer that came back, it rained. And then they went and got mats. Afterwards, when the work was 3/4 done, the wetlands all turned a giant, mud heap down there. And then they went and got mats and hauled them in. In the meantime, 1.5 miles away was 7,000 mats sitting in a pile, 1.5 miles away. Okay? Then they went and got the mats and they matted it out like the last 3 days that they worked there. Then they went back and restored everything. Northern Land Clearing, who did the cutting in that area under the 307, the C-129, went right back through their area less than a month after they restored it and tore the whole thing up and never used the mat. So what's going on here? What's the bigger picture?
Jim?
And that's not the last one, and there's been other people came in. And then Eversource wrote a letter back and said, well, other people use ATVs down there, when the engineers themselves were riding the ATVs through the wetland.
So
So, what's
Jim,
the big picture?
they're not prepared to answer that tonight, I think.
And
Sylvia, Sylvia had a comment, I think, a
well,
question?
I'm wondering, we have Kate as planning board rep. Do you agree with my assessment? Do you feel like I'm reading construction of roads and other access ways and for utility pipes, power lines, other lines, et cetera. It's not saying new, it's not saying maintenance of, there's gray.
Correct.
Right, and it's also not listed in the permitted uses, so.
And it's not in
It's
permitted.
in the other
So it's
basket.
in other,
I
which
guess-
is what I'm saying. I want to get you guys going as quick as we can. That's my goal. My other goal is that your team goes out there, assesses what's going on, and comes up with construction sequence so that the planning board can say, okay, we get where this is, you give us a plan with everything identified, your access road, the temporary measures you're gonna do, all of that identified construction sequence. I've seen Eversource do these things in other communities, all spelled out, beautifully done. I'm thinking we need to just up the game a little so that this group here can feel a lot more secure on what's gonna happen. Because right now, there's too many loose ends and a lot of questions.
And I would also say, I mean, I suppose, although given the time, I don't know if it's how useful it is. I mean, you can present the rest of what you have, but we're not the commission or the board to make this decision. It has to go through the planning board. So it sounds like that's the group that you need to make your presentation to.
But let me just add to that. One reason we appreciate you being here tonight is that, based on what I saw and the 20-foot span of a wetland, I thought for sure you guys needed wetlands permits. Maybe I'm wrong.
So that's the utility maintenance notification. That's the wetland permit for this type of work. That's what the state requires, is the utility maintenance notification and using the BMP manual.
Okay. That's what I thought you'd say. So, using the BMP manual, I think entails vegetative buffers, based on my reading of it.
Vegetated buffers in, you mean staying away?
Wetlands, yes.
Well, the thing with maintenance is you can't stay away. The structure is where the structure is.
I know that.
You can't.
I
like-
live on a right of way.
Right,
I'm
I mean,
familiar with
so it's different than new construction.
I understand that.
I
Right.
think you're
I'm used to
referring
vegetative management,
Veg
but there's,
maintenance has some stipulations with regard to riparian, leavings, vegetation.
Correct.
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
So in
Yes.
these projects, there's no vegetation.
In this case, because it's structure maintenance, there is no
That's right.
buffer. But when you're talking about veg maintenance, which is also covered on the
That's
BMP
different.
manual, there are
Yes.
some BMPs in there
I understand.
that regard
I understand
So
those
that's
things.
different. It just
maintaining
isn't veg.
vegetation within
Right.
riparian buffers.
And I think what's appropriate here is that construction sequence spelling out exactly the BMPs, not just referring to a larger BMP manual, here's the zoning ordinance, no. What I think is more appropriate here, because of the sensitivity of all this and what you've heard, is spelled out A, B, C, exactly what this contractor is gonna do. Exactly, and what BMPs are followed. So that there's no question. There's no question from the contractor and no question from the abutters, no question from the town. So that if anyone goes out there and is going through and happens to look at this, they'd be seeing, oh, look, they're on construction sequence number 5, you know, whatever, however that's, we know what's gonna happen. I think that's appropriate. Here's the lucky part. Sherry had just emailed me, I think, a week and a half ago. You were lucky enough to get this meeting in front of you so quickly. We can do the same with planning board. We can get you in there, probably the second meeting in September. I don't know that we can get you the first meeting, but, you know, Jane can set you up as soon as possible. You guys can go, you know, gangbusters, do this homework, and get on the first planning board meeting agenda that you can, that, you know, all public notification allows. And there's the good news.
What is the date of that second meeting? Is it
Okay,
every 2
I
weeks?
can answer that question, and I won't even use electronics, and I can beat anybody with an iPhone with this. Okay, so the date is, first meeting is on the 13th of
Yeah,
September.
but this would be the second.
The second meeting is the 27th. It's the second and fourth Wednesdays of the
September
month.
27th.
27,
7?
fourth Wednesday.
So we would need notification, like you wanna get with Jane, as soon as possible, find out when plans, et cetera, whatever you need to submit for this conditional use.
So the,
Is there a requirement to meet with the Conservation Commission first? So I reached out to Sylvia and asked what the process was, and she
Correct.
recommended that I come here.
And
That
that is because the planning board, with the concurrence of the Conservation Commission, may require, well, that's for an environmental impact assessment. I think that's going a little far, but I just felt, because of the sensitivity here, it needed to go here.
Well, also, you wrote Sherry on the August 11th, and based on the schedule, and also from what I could see of the information you presented, the plan and the aerial, it seemed like there may be some wetland impact as well. So I just thought, because of sequencing, why waste your time coming to planning board if we have to bounce you to Conservation Commission? Let's get you to Conservation Commission and figure out the appropriate steps, because luckily for you, the harder-working Sylvia Fenolic was here anyhow for other stuff.
Right.
So we're just trying to be
I
efficient.
was just trying to answer your question about why we came here.
Gotcha.
But that was the thinking.
So the thing I was just discussing with Sherry is, so the job we just described for insulator repair is done live line, just like we asked. It's a very intense job, where the lines, they're still energized when they're working on them. There is a type of an outage on that has to be scheduled for reclosing. But without getting into that, the other 3 jobs that Sherry was gonna describe are structure replacements. That will entail a circuit outage. That is not something we control. That's controlled by ISO New England, who controls the grid for all of New England. And they don't just control it for us, they make sure all
Right.
contingencies are set up.
Yep.
We are not in control of that schedule.
Understood.
So I don't mind going to the September, but I need to go back So the insulator repair, we're a bit more loose on that. The structure replacement, I need to go back and figure out when those outages are, because they don't just give them out.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
if it fits in fine, then
Yeah.
I'm fine.
So you've already
But
scheduled the outage?
You have to schedule that way
Yeah.
long in advance, because they do
Before you,
studies of every, of the,
but before you get the permits?
because
Yes.
we have to be sure that we can get an outage, and it's not,
Well, you can't
they
be
do
sure-
it all
you
of,
can't
for
be-
all of
You
New
can't be sure
England.
you're gonna get a permit.
Doesn't matter, you need that, the outage is the most important thing.
Well, then you'll have to reschedule another one if you don't get a permit.
I'm just saying, they're very hard to get, and this is critical stuff. I need to check on that.
Understand.
not
Maintaining outages is a big deal.
And
for-
Deerfield isn't the only town that's
Right.
on these circuits that are also being notified. So there are other towns, there's other structure replacements and insulator work being done in other towns on the same circuit. So when they take an outage, they're taking an outage of the entire
I
circuit.
understand.
So even if we didn't get a permit in Deerfield, that doesn't mean we couldn't do the work in Candia, you
Right.
know, so.
You might be able to get on that first September meeting if you got your information in.
Why don't we check first,
This-
instead of guessing here?
All right.
Now I have the dates. This may be fine.
Okay.
I just want to say, it's, there, for the insulator one, it's a bit easier to deal with. The structure is depending on when that outage is.
And I will say too, I just wanna speak to the implementation of BMPs and the oversight. So the Eversource is sort of going through this transition with regards to maintenance work. So they are taking a more aggressive look at making sure that abutters are notified. They've never notified abutters in previous years of maintenance activities, only of capital projects. Maintenance wasn't, because it was these isolated areas, they didn't do that. As they filed the utility maintenance notification and they went. So that's the way that it's been operating. And they've now asked the environmental consultants to submit proposals and do the construction oversight of these contractors on these circuits, which again is something new that they haven't done yet. They had one person who was going out. They've also hired more people at Eversource in the maintenance group to ensure that these things are gonna be done. And part of the reason is because there is a lot more maintenance activities that are occurring than have occurred in previous years. So that is that is an extra level of protection, whereas before they gave the contractor the construction spec, the utility maintenance notification, they make sure that they did their National Heritage Bureau review and everything was good, and then they said, here's your BMP manual and go and do it. And now there's, outreach is notifying abutters to make sure abutters know why people are in their right of way, outside of their homes. They're, making sure that, and having the community relations people, like I reached out to the community relations person here in Deerfield who works for Eversource to say, okay, who do I contact in the town to make sure that, we are, and then that's how I got your name.
And who is
Sylvia.
that person?
Catalina.
Catalina Celentano.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So there is a lot more focus on these maintenance activities than there has been in the past. And that's why, you're seeing us tonight, and that's why I'm bringing every single thing that's happening in Deerfield. There are all these projects that are happening, this year that were scheduled at different times. And so I wanted to come and show you all the things that are happening in your town all at once, and so we can have a conversation about that.
Jim has a
So-
question, but I appreciate that. You're new to this process, you're working internally at Eversource, but your employer is VHB, but you're a contractor, right?
Yep.
So the specific question is, are the structure replacements the same heights?
One is the same height, two are increasing by 5 feet.
And structure type, are those changing?
They're the same structure type.
Which are?
Poles.
They're steel H-frame type, and I have a thing here. that-
They're wood to steel though, right?
It could be, I don't know
Yeah.
exactly here, but
So it sounds like you're
traditionally, we don't
changing,
put
you're
up the
changing
wood
type.
anymore
Yeah.
because we don't want to keep coming back here.
Right, maintenance.
So we try to put this, so I don't know if it's like for like, but material may be steel.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I have specific types, and I also brought detail of what they
picture of what they look like?
Yep. So these are, this one is 194 and 175, looks like this.
Well, those are new numbers.
Yeah, I haven't talked about those yet. We didn't get through, we just talked about insulators. And then this is the C-129, structure 3. So those are the, so we haven't talked about the structure replacement, so I hadn't got to this
So
part
they
yet.
look exactly the same, except it's
Steel.
steel versus wood.
But are all of these projects part of the CUP? I mean, and I'm sorry to try to wrap this up, but we have
Good question.
other people who came to talk about other things, and they have kindly sat here for a very long time, when they probably should have gone first. And I just feel like if this is all part of the CUP, which is going to require more homework on your part, then we should take this up at the next meeting. Ben?
Can I ask a really quick question?
Mhm.
Just out of curiosity, so you're building a pad for, ground vehicles and things. Is all that work, can it only be done from the ground, or can it also be done from helicopter aerially?
The structure replacements have to be done on the
Well,
ground.
right, the insulator work, I guess.
Right.
Well, it's live line.
Yeah, so the insulator repair can be done from the ground, but we're probably doing this because we need to get it done, and we can't take the outage, so we're doing it live line. That is very difficult to do from the pole. It's, because you gotta get equal potential, it's hard to get equal potential from the ground. I mean, from not using the structures, because they have to go in and separate the phases. It's a big ordeal.
So it cannot be done from the air, is what you're saying?
If
Okay.
we were taking an outage, we could, but
Okay.
we're doing this live line. So I wanted to make that because you will hear the same job done
Yep.
from the ground, from a helicopter or something,
Ah.
but that's when we take an outage. This is live line.
Okay.
Different type of
Mm.
work.
And I'm very aware of Sarita and also Mr. Borman, who is retired and still awake, and we appreciate it. Jim had a quick question. We need to wrap this up, but Jim, do you want to?
I'd just like to know, you made it very clear on your permit request that you intend only to cut and drop the wood poles and not pull the butts. Why would that be?
Well, the standard practice is to leave the butts in the ground to minimize disturbance, particularly when they're in the wetland areas. And also Fish and Game has asked us to leave the butts in the ground because the snakes like to often it creates a little cavity next to the pole, and they like to hibernate in those areas. So Fish and Game has asked Eversource to leave the butts in the ground in upland areas, and then in wetland areas, we've not pulled the poles because that would create a larger disturbance to pull the pole than to just leave it in the ground.
You can't pull a 8 and 9 foot butt out. Those are like 9-foot butts that are in the wetland, and then turn around and backfill it. But you can dig another hole and put a pole in and backfill around it. I just failed to see that. I've taken thousands.
Okay, we're not going to get into details now. We're going to go to the planning board. We need to get on to other stuff on our agenda. Phil, did you have a
No,
question?
I wanted to say thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
And it might be possible, is Judy, did you get the date of that letter that Phil had and when he was notified?
No, I have no
And so
knowledge.
maybe he can just,
I'll try to scan it tomorrow.
Okay.
that'd be
Or-
great.
Sure.
And maybe I'll leave you my new email.
Oh, okay.
So let's do that in a second, but also in terms of your stuff.
Email me.
You sent us,
I'll get it.
the email I sent to you from Saturday said that you listed 3 structures. As first structures for consideration, are there others? I guess the answer is yes, there are others.
Well, there are
Um,
3 structures and 2 insulators, but yeah.
Okay, so, but this is certainly not a comprehensive list. I just made these questions up on Saturday morning because certain questions came to mind. There may be more stuff that you can provide us in advance that will speed your visit to the planning board, looking at the Wetlands Conservation District, and this is just a starting question. So there might be more based on this conversation.
So just to follow up on Phil's comment. So, thanks for coming in. It was a challenging conversation, obviously. I think you can see that the long history and experience of people in town has left a lot of questions about, what you're proposing here. And so, number one, thanks for coming in and and hearing us. But I guess what it also does is gives you a heads up for what you can expect from the planning board and what you should bring with you to back up your proposal. So.
I'd like to just say, it's an awakening for me, but for a lot of us, even though we've been involved in some of the Northern Pass activities, and maybe that's part of the issue, because we've been hearing things and seeing things and trying to put stuff together, and so we really got into it tonight. But this is, it was very good. I appreciate your being here, and glad to hear about public outreach. What I've seen so far has needed some improvement. I feel, from what you've been saying, it's looking better. Keep it up. and
Right, we've
keep
been asking for
improving.
that for a long time. Because we don't like these kind of meetings at all. I bet you don't either.
Nope. I'd like them to go a little bit smoother.
Although they do serve, it is good. It's good when the public knows it makes it easier for us.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we'd be happy.
So in one sense, these meetings are a pain, but it's good communication.
No, it's not a pain. Look at all the work you got done. Sylvia, good night. Thank you. Can you spell your last name?
MCCUNE.
He's with Eversource.
Oh.
No, I
McCune?
never, I don't carry them because everybody always asks me at these meetings. And they
McCune.
call me when the lights go out. You wouldn't believe how many calls I get when the lights go out, so now
What's your title?
I'm in charge of the permitting group. So John Casey reported to
For
me.
permitting for all of Eversource?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah, for New
Thanks,
Hampshire
Sylvia.
and Eastern New Hampshire and Massachusetts.
Well, thank
And
you for
Connecticut.
visiting us tonight. My goodness, you're sort of a busy man.
It's busy, yes,
Yeah.
it's busy.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Is this the form that Kate Is this the one that,
From New Hampshire?
No, he was CLNP.
from Elkhorn?
I don't really, no, it's New Hampshire and Mass, but I
Wasn't
really don't.
What was the work that was done on your right of way where it originally was going to be Matt's with track vehicles and then they?
That was the insulator replacement.
So was there an outage then? How did they?
No.
She's with
They
VHP.
can do insulator
Fred.
replacement, they can do.
You waited a really long time, thank you.
Oh, it was just, but I understood
This
it
is
was.
structure replacement.
I'm so
That's what
sorry
he,
that you're still.
replacing the wire, I think.
Well, don't be.
Okay, I understood him to say that they couldn't do the insulator.
Tell us about your very important work, Fred.
Okay.
Also, that was a
I'm
345
not
he's
gonna
talking
Be
about.
very long, so.
We have 115s.
Okay, so we're gonna, because of the time, we're gonna move to Fred so that he can finally go home as well.
And I won't hold you up very much longer. Basically, this project that we're working on through UNICE Cooperative Extension is called the Town Forest and Community Lands Project. We're doing it with the Northern Forest Center and Granite out of the university. And what we're trying to do is update the town-owned conservation lands statewide. I've been tasked with Rockingham County, and because we have not had a forester in Hillsborough County for the last year, I also acquiesced and said that I'd start working on Hillsborough County. It's been quite a chore. Basically, we're trying to identify every town-owned parcel, and within those parcels, any tracts that make up the greater parcel. And so I have a 7-page questionnaire that I have to do for each parcel, and then if the parcel is made up of multiple tracts, I have to do an acquisition page for each of the tracts. And so I had emailed Sarita this morning with my list of questions to make things go more smoothly tonight. and then she had given it to Judy, who gave me a lot of great information regarding the acquisition, administration, and management of your town-owned conservation lands. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take that information that was given to me tonight, complete the surveys to the best of my ability, and then if I have additional questions, I'll email Judy directly. And so if I can get your email address, Judy, I would appreciate that. And so the whole purpose of this is once we fill out the paper survey, we then have a data survey, Qualtrics, some of you know what Qualtrics is, that we will have. I have our administrative assistant in Brentwood input the data into that so that Alicia Carlson, who is our forestry outreach assistant, can provide that information to Granite so that hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be able to update the Granite data that's available to anyone for town-owned lands. We're limiting it to 10 acres and above per parcel. There have been individual tracts that are less than 10 acres, but if they're part of the greater whole, then we include them. But if it's a less than 10 acre parcel all by itself, we're not going to do it. I was reading through the material that was given to me, and the only major question that's still partially unanswered is whether or not your town forests are in fact designated town forests under RSA 31:110. And Judy said that she'll look into it some more. I will look into it some more. It's not crucial, but it's a piece of information that we like to have so that we know, which town forests. Because I have found in various towns that they'll call a parcel a town forest, but it's not a designated by town meeting, because there are other ramifications such as, the RSA requires that there be a separate fund for revenues to go into from
Right.
timber sales and things like that.
Well, does anyone know that? I mean, so we had the town vote to put conservation easements on all of the town forests, and we called them town forests at that, and within that,
Yeah, I have a copy of the easement, and that's with Bear Paw, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
and we also, for sure, I know we designated Boisfort through a town vote as a town forest.
Yeah,
So I
the
think
question is
Judy-
whether that RSA is in the actual article, warrant article. That would
Right.
make it.
Right.
Oh, you
And
mean
I-
whether that RSA is actually
Referenced.
referenced in
Right.
the
Yeah.
warrant?
Yeah,
Right.
the town forest has to be voted at town meeting
Mhm.
through a warrant article referencing RSA
Yeah.
31:110.
So even if it's voted on but not referencing this RSA, then that,
Well,
And we do have the maintenance fund,
Yeah, you're right.
any harvesting revenues go into that fund and. at
so, I
least
mean,
supposed to be.
somewhere back in history,
Yeah.
there must have been a town meeting at some point that authorized that.
I just wanted to take these pictures.
I'll do a little bit,
Yeah.
of digging and see if and that's really, I mean, everything else,
Thanks, Kevin.
the other major issues are, well, they're not issues, but, are any of the parcels used for education, whether for school programs, general public, nature walks, hikes, are there kiosks? I noticed on the management plans, usually they have a sign of the forest on the front of the management plan, so I know, yes, that forest has a kiosk.
Well, maybe you can help us better understand your question about the educational purposes, because since you were an early bird and you got to sit through a whole meeting, you heard Ellen O'Donnell come forward with a new proposal that does involve educational purposes that didn't
Yeah.
exist prior. So we generally, I think, as a Conservation Commission, would expect any of them, if relevant, to serve an educational
Mhm.
purpose.
So the general
Oh, I think
answer to
it's
that
done.
is yes. You know, that we don't necessarily have a concerted education plan that, you know, but we have these various things, education-wise, that go on, you know, in various town forests or.
And then, you know,
various
Sarita's
parcels.
running instrumentation on one of them, and then we have the town Trails Club, which is starting to take shape, which is doing other stuff.
Mhm.
So if you want a general answer, the answer is that all could potentially be a candidate for education. But specifically, it depends on who walks in the door and what ideas they have.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that the kind of information you're looking for?
Well, the question, the specific questions are, so for recreation, the options are, and this is for each parcel, so it could be minimal use by a few people, develop trails for local use. In some cases where towns have received a grant, either through the New Hampshire Charitable Trust or the US Forest Service or somebody, there would be developed trails for regional use. You know, they may connect to a trail in another town. Or have you had celebrations or events for townspeople?
And what's the purpose of knowing that?
That's
I
a
think-
very good question.
Were you gonna say that, Haley?
There's just a real lack of understanding of how much land towns own throughout New Hampshire and elsewhere, but we'll focus on New Hampshire. And then how they're being used and what the gaps are in terms of needs. So for stewardship and education and future management, you know, there's just no real understanding of how much land there actually is owned by towns and what those towns need in terms of support to move forward in a variety of areas. So in terms of recreation planning, you know, there's a lot of trails initiatives now, so focusing efforts on what towns might need that type of assistance, so.
So it's really a survey to get more information, to
Right.
provide
Yeah.
assistance to
The next
towns.
step, but this project at baseline is going to at least create a mapped database with some level of metadata that, you know, creates the infrastructure of what town-owned land in New Hampshire looks like, which hasn't existed up until this point.
Oh, good, so we have a coach for our answers in the form of Haley.
Except I don't know much about Deerfield town-owned land, so that's
But
fine.
Eric does.
With the survey, I know.
Yeah, right.
So
Right.
also, for your purposes, you wrote to us way back on November 28th, 2016. So we've been trying to get this information together, and any information you see there is because Judy, since
Mhm.
November, has been working
Yeah,
on this.
Yeah.
So your questions are hard, and they're worse than a final, because, because it takes a long time.
Right, right. And,
Well, I've got the data, but a lot of the stuff in his questions are things that only you guys can really answer, because I've only been doing this for 7 years.
Yeah.
You guys have been here for 27 years, 37.
But I think it's also
Or
the
a
case that a lot of times we don't know, because, you know, we can answer globally, but for every single parcel, you know, we would have to sit here and sort of rack our brains and think back, okay, let's see, when we did, you know,
The deeds don't necessarily specify it, but there are things like, if we look at each parcel specifically, like the Boys Hurt, that's minimal use, really, as far as recreation, and we know that. There are some questions of his that I can answer. Others, I don't think it would take a whole lot for me to throw it out at you guys periodically, and you would come up with the answers of what these things are used for. There just are a variety of things that you probably just pull off the top of your heads. And that's why when I talked to you the other day, I said, they look like they're hard, but they're not really. The hardest ones probably are the RSAs, because now you're talking about digging back to the 70s.
right.
And what do? Look at every town meeting
Well,
and add all the
yeah.
warrant articles?
And, I mean, you bring up a good point, Judy, and I think the other goal of this project, New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions is also a partner, and I think, you know, the goal with them is that, you know, that institutional knowledge has started to be lost in a lot of towns. You know, in terms of conservation easements have just been around long enough that, you know, 2 rounds of long-term conservation commission members and that knowledge is gone. So
Yeah.
I think an effort to kind of catalog a lot of that information, so people do know how big parcels are, when they were conserved, what management has been done.
I don't have a complaint about his forms either, because I intend to at least try to get as much if he never gets it, at least I'm starting files that.
Yeah, you're
I-
building
I-
a-
Yeah.
Exactly.
Building a
And
database.
that's another purpose. I mean, one town that shall remain nameless is that I ended up finding all of the book and page numbers for their parcels. Because their conservation commission had no idea what the deed, where the deeds, or what the deeds were for their.
Well, that's been an ongoing process
Yeah.
here too. And
Well,
what
it's
we're
only because we
saying-
have Judy that we actually can.
And in a lot of cases, the tax cards don't list the
No,
book
they
and
don't.
page number.
Right.
You know, the value is 0. There may or may not be a date when the parcel was acquired, but usually in the assessor's records, there's
There's
no,
nothing.
there's
Yeah.
nothing. There's nothing. So I've gone into the Rockingham County deeds and just, the grantee, town of Deerfield. And I just go through all the records until I can find, oh, okay, there's Douse Cape, and then I have the book and page number. And so as onerous as this is for the community, I've done a lot of pre-work before coming to you, so, and I've been doing this since November of
But
last
it does
year.
seem to be a replication in many ways of what's on Granite, which is why Kate had the question
Yeah.
way back when, are these two separate things or are they related?
And then there's the prep data.
It's
the Piscataqua
related
region
in that we're
estuary stuff,
trying to
so.
update, and I'm finding correct what's already in Granite.
Right.
Because you can make a shapefile, but the assessor's records will give you 1 acreage, the deed gives you another acreage, Granite gives you a 3rd acreage, and we're trying to narrow it down as much as we can to,
And that'll change over time anyway.
it will change over time anyway.
Mr.
I mean,
Borman,
and frankly, by the end of this year, after all this data is input, we could start all over again, because
Yeah.
it's gonna change, it changes monthly.
And I did find 2 parcels from doing this that are not in Granite, which will be after this, so
Yeah.
it's valuable.
So Judy gave you a bunch of information, but presumably you will still have some questions for us.
Possibly.
What is your time frame for,
My grant is running out of money, so I'm actually gonna be done next week.
okay, because Judy had just said, if you have additional questions
Mm-hmm.
that she can't answer, she could bring it to us, and we can do our best to answer based on our sort of piecemeal knowledge, but that may or may not be in time for your
Well,
deadline.
the good news is that there is a candidate to replace me as the Rockingham County Forester. And I have not been told who it is. They don't trust me, I guess. But they are bringing the candidate before the advisory council on September, whatever the second Monday in September is. And then hopefully by the end of September.
September
you'll-
11th.
you will have a new forester in Rockingham County for cooperative extension. And anything that anything that I don't get done, that person will take over. And I'm leaving copious notes on every town that I've been working on that I will not be able to complete before next week, so. Let's see, is there anything else before I go? There is a town maintenance, a forest fund that Eric mentioned.
Yeah, as far as I know.
I believe that's noted on the bottom of
Yeah.
that one.
Yep. And I do know the parcels that do have bear paw easements on them, so that's, other than ATVs or other off-road vehicles, are there any restrictions that you know of on any of the parcels as far as public use or access?
Well, in some cases, horseback riding is
Is not allowed?
not I guess not allowed.
Yeah.
Freeze, I know, it's just terrible terrain for horses.
Okay, all right. I'll look at the management plans and the information that Judy gave me.
Yeah.
on those.
I think it was actually in the easement, if you have that.
And then you talk about Bear Paw, you didn't mention LCIP.
Okay, that, so there's LCIP, there's LCHIP, there's Federal Land and Water Conservation Fund.
This is all true.
That I'm finding. So when I there's a difference between an outright easement such as you'd have with Bear Paw. What I'm finding with LCIP and LCHIP is that there are monitoring reports that are due. There may be deed restrictions. So what I'm doing is in my notes section, I'm noting whether it's LCIP or LCHIP or,
So we have
Land and Water.
seven, we have seven that are
Yeah, Land and Water
LCFD.
Conservation Fund.
Yep.
And that will be up to the powers that be to differentiate
Great.
between
Okay.
them. But, yeah, when I first started doing this, if I saw LCIP, I wasn't putting any information, but as I got into this, I realized that there are some restrictions.
And there's annual monitoring.
And there's annual monitoring.
And Deerfield had the most complicated local project in the state, so we got a lot of LCIP land.
But none of that is information that he is utilizing because those aren't town-owned. Those are privately held conservation properties. So that's not in this
Yeah, these are,
report.
yeah, this is just town-owned.
It's just town-owned.
But if there is a piece of town-owned that LCIP was used, then
Okay, never mind, that's right.
Yeah, then I do note it, but.
Okay.
And in some
Never mind.
cases, a piece of property would be acquired by a land trust and then donated to whatever town it happens to be.
Yep,
Yeah,
we don't have any of that.
yeah.
May I ask you a question before we wrap this up?
Sure.
So, in the interest of sanity of Judy Marshall,
Mm-hmm.
in the interest of time with the rest of us, this is a question for everybody, including you. Since Sylvia mentioned the issue of amendments to zoning, and every year we have our town warrant, does it make any sense, rather than spending extraordinary numbers of hours going back through all the town records to find the status of what we think are town forests, to do a housekeeping article that basically designates all of them under the RSA blada blada, that they're town forests for 2018?
I mean, it sounds like a reasonable thing to do. I can't give you a legal response,
It's just off
but,
the top of my head, and these guys
but-
don't know either.
but
I
it
don't know,
sounds, I mean, it sounds,
Is that necessary? You know, I mean, we have what we have. We call
Well,
it.
we don't know
a
what we
town
have.
forest. Well, a town forest.
No, we
Right.
don't know,
Well,
Well,
if it is.
no, forget it, sorry.
okay, so here's the devil's advocate in me. If it is, and you have a blanket warrant article, say Douse Kate Weiss is a designated town forest. If you have a blanket warrant article that includes Douse Kate Weiss, and it's defeated,
Right.
then
Not
does
one,
that
yeah.
take the town forest designation away from a town forest that was designated previously?
we have what we have,
Write
let's have it.
properly.
I'm with Eric. I'm with Eric, we have
Yeah,
what we have.
yeah.
And let's just, yeah, and if we find it, we find it easily, and if not, we don't.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, but, yeah, it's the, opening up the proverbial can of worms.
You already did that, we're just trying to figure out. who's
Well,
on the list.
well,
You're the one who
I put a
did it.
lid on it. But, yeah, I think it could backfire
Right, right.
if it's not, as you say, written properly, so.
Well, it seems like too, we could verify if they currently meet, the requirements of what would be a town forest, everything that goes along with that.
Yeah.
So if we're effectively meeting all those requirements, we just never did that.
Yeah, I
one
mean,
step,
what is the
then-
risk? Is it,
Well, I think we need to
Yeah.
figure out what
Yeah.
what being a town forest means in totality of legal terms.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't tell us, can you?
Well, I mean, basically, according to the, it requires a voted town meeting. It also requires the establishment of a town forest maintenance fund
Tied to that specific property.
to that
Yeah.
specific property, so that any revenues that come off of that property
Go back.
would then, instead of going to the general fund, would go into the forest maintenance fund.
Do we have that, Eric?
yes, I think we do.
So, maybe there's like this adverse possession thing, if we're treating them like town
Yeah.
forests for a long time, maybe they are town forests.
Well, I think these warrant articles went through council too, so Jim Raymond would have, he's a good attorney, knows this town stuff, and So, but we should not lose sight of the fact that there's maybe a little something here we have to be aware of. So,
If it makes you feel any better, the town of Newington voted their town forest in 1761.
They might win the prize.
Okay,
Was
thanks,
Those
that
days,
RSA?
those days, no women were voting on it, were they?
Probably not.
thanks for
Thank you,
coming in,
Fred.
Well, thank you.
and thanks
Yeah.
again for sitting through that.
Oh, that was all right. I have sat through many Northeast Utilities, Connecticut Light and Power, PSNH meetings, yes, yeah, it's nothing I haven't heard before.
Well, I do apologize for imposing on your time.
That's all right.
Thank you. I'm sorry that it went on so long.
That's all right. It was my pleasure.
I think you may exaggerate. but
Well, I
At
have,
least
you
your
know,
entertainment, huh?
like
You
I said
needed one-
earlier, I saw Game of Thrones last night, so I'm
You needed one last meeting like that before you officially retire, so.
Exactly.
Bye,
Well, they're after me to join the Conservation Commission in Northwood.
There you
all
go.
right, good.
I hope you're saying yes, this might be yours or may not.
Oh, yes. All right, good night, everybody.
Bye, Fred.
Good
Thanks,
night.
Fred. See you.
Okay, so, I just want to do a few things quickly, like approve minutes, so that we don't get those backed up to our next meeting. And then I think we can look, but I'm not sure that any of this is really critical to have, to be done tonight, so.
Well, we gotta do some budget. We gotta talk. about
Right, we have to do minutes and
Yeah,
budget,
okay.
but beyond that, I'm
Right.
not sure we have to do more. So we're gonna be here a few more minutes longer,
Mhm.
sorry. But I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the minutes from the July 10th regular meeting.
I'll second
All, any discussion?
Nicely done.
All in favor?
that. Aye.
Any opposed? Eric, finance report.
Well, my report is, that I have no report. Our town treasurer is behind in 3 reports. I have notified her quite often that we need the reports. The last memo was 3 weeks ago. And so I've been working with, I'll just say I'm working with the town administrator to get some things squared away here as to, I think you have March, is that the last one you have, or April? Yeah, May,
here,
June, July are
May, Ju-
missing.
May and June are behind,
May and June.
and then obviously July.
Right.
I didn't even bother to put it in, I said we would not have it.
Okay, so I'm working on that,
Okay.
and we'll have to, everybody read the budget memo?
Thank you, Eric.
Well, this is always a very early event. I mean, it seems like the year just started, and now we're talking about budgets for next year. And so the big question is, how are we gonna do this? And I'm not gonna try and, not gonna drag it out tonight. I think our budget will be somewhere approximately what it was for this year, in terms of what our needs are. Let me say first, for our new members, do you have any, would you like me to quickly go through this to tell you what it's all about?
I haven't taken a close enough look at it yet to have any specific questions, so I'm happy to just listen to what you share.
Basically, we have a line item for different things,
Yeah.
and it's, as Eric said in his email, we've had a default budget the last 3 years, and so this whole process has been sort of moot, and I think we just basically put in the same budget that we've been putting in. I think that, I guess, Eric, the main question is what we do about the trails,
That's the big one.
the trails
but-
line, and, maybe Ben has some thoughts on that.
Those could, and maybe not right now, but there's 2 things there which I mentioned in the memo. Next year, we'll be putting this in again, I assume. I mean, we have trails we need to do, and so the figure that we used last year for this year was $200, and we had this serendipitous passing of the budget, which brought that line to us. And so My thought was.
I see, that's why you're asking, or saying that we need to,
I think this year we need to see if there's some expenses we can incur looking towards next year in our plan, so let's.
because we have the budget and there are needs, so let's use the money that we have to put towards those needs. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I'm saying, yes, I'm saying that. I'm also saying that I think we will need to propose, we may need to propose another line for expense next year.
Right.
And
So,
in addition to the trails one that.
yeah, I mean, this was in here after not a whole heck of a lot of analysis.
Okay.
But we knew we were gonna start the Trails Club,
Yeah.
and this was a way to do that. So are there any expenses that could be considered for this year? And do we need expenses for next year? That's a real
Okay.
question.
And what would those expenses be, is your point?
Right.
So what should that line item be next year?
Um,
That's your question?
Well, that is a question, right.
Yeah.
What should all the line items be? But I think in the case, we had 200 this year. Is that suitable for next year? Or is there another amount that might be appropriate?
Okay.
And that's a function of what are we gonna do next year? Or what are we
Right.
planning to do? So, I mean.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We can talk sometime about this if you would like to do that.
Sure, yeah, and just generally, what's the time frame for getting this in? I'm assuming this goes to the municipal
Well,
budget committee.
the way it worked last year, there's always usually a call for the budget to be reviewed in early September.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
but there is also some flexibility. I have to say, the board and the municipal budget committee have worked with us. I mean, we're not a huge budget like roads or things
Yeah.
like that. So, and a lot of our expenses aren't, you'll see there's a lot of unspending. There's a lot of lines that have not been spent yet, and that's because at the end of the year, we have memberships in other commissions, the Association for Conservation Commission in New Hampshire, and so on. So, we usually get a pass until later to really fine tune it.
Gotcha.
So, if we have to do something in September, well, maybe after we think about it and you and I talk, maybe we can
Okay.
come up with something.
It
But
might also be worth talking to Jim, because I think
Yeah.
that budget line was based on some ideas that Jim had about what needed to happen related to trail
That's a good point.
maintenance. And, I mean,
Yeah.
I thought we did have some expenses related to paint for marking trails and things like that. Did that not?
I think, well, I don't recall actual expenses, I recall thinking about it. But
But well,
Was
maybe,
there something?
I think,
maybe it went under,
donated,
okay, those were donations,
oh,
okay,
okay.
the painted,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it would be helpful to understand where it came from originally. I mean, a lot of the, off the top of my head, ideas I've had have mostly just been in awareness and, kind of like the Trails Club Facebook page that's already out there. So I'd be curious to know, what the thought was behind that.
So it'd be good if you could talk to Jim.
Yeah.
To get some ideas of what he had in mind. And
Sure.
Then,
I mean, in the past, we used some of our budget for medallions or markers, for example, to mark easements and those
Yeah.
sorts of things. That's not directly related to the trail club per
Right.
se, but it
Well,
was
but
related to,
it's close.
so anyway, I mean, that's the sort of thing, I guess,
Okay.
that,
Well, trail maintenance too, and wouldn't you need, you need supplies and materials for, like you did at Peg King.
yes,
For
you might
the-
need
for the
gas for
bridge and-
chainsaws or,
Yeah, bridge repair and,
Or
right.
building trails, I mean, that's a whole other area. There are
Right.
organizations that we can look to, like Student Conservation Corps.
AmeriCorps.
AmeriCorps, yeah,
Okay.
we've heard about these over the years, but that's as far as we've gotten. But it's-
Anyway, Jim had ideas, but he just wasn't able, because of his other responsibilities, to really follow through. So I think he would
Yeah.
have some suggestions.
Yeah, it would definitely be helpful to know where we're starting from,
Yeah,
before going too much further. Yeah.
Is Jim still on the trail committee?
I think he's not.
Where does
I
that
don't think
stand?
he's officially resigned, but I
No.
think that's his
No.
plan.
Yeah.
So we need to, I guess, follow up with him on that at some point.
Is he still he's still in the commission, right?
Right, he hasn't officially resigned, as far as I know.
But I think he said he was going to as soon as one of you two showed up.
I think he said,
I'm
as-
Deb.
yeah, no, he said as soon
Yeah,
as,
I mean,
he said when Ben, if
was
Ben
the
comes on
impetus.
board, I'm leaving, so.
I believe, I believe
Just
the
doesn't
Board of
like me that much.
Selectmen letter indicated that you were his replacement.
Oh, so it is
I
official.
think.
Yeah, Jim.
I believe, I mean, that was his intention.
Yeah, that's-
I'll double
Is that how
check.
you understood it?
Absolutely.
Good, okay. We
Okay,
got that
then I
straight.
guess that is official then.
Okay, he has, okay, so that's here, you're officially replacing him.
We could refuse the resignation.
To
Just
fill
tell
the
him, ha
vacancy
ha.
created by the resignation
We're saying
of
no.
former
We
member
want more
Jim
fun.
Dealey.
Okay,
it was
so
in there.
it is official.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll just add, I have no trail expertise, but have a lot of colleagues who do, so
Okay.
there's a lot going on with trails in the region right now, so Extension is launching like a tool rental center, basically, that will be in Epping, so like all trail tools and
nice.
to borrow for volunteer work days and stuff like that, and there's also a lot of trail trainings going on, and a new trail mapping initiative through Extension and a program called Trail Finder, so like, there might be some opportunities there
Yeah.
for you to just tie into a system that already exists, and maybe you just need less money for like a
Right.
GPS, but you don't have to build the internet website, so that
Right,
sort of
right.
thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
So
great.
happy to send you whatever you need.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great, well, that sounds good.
Yeah, that's not far either.
So, I guess we'll leave this, see what happens by next month, and I'll
I'll
let
be
you know.
asking you for supplies. I
Oh.
noticed that we've got the
Oh, good.
supply on there, and I can use some things.
Good, that's good. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so looking through the agenda, are there any items that are essential that we discussed tonight?
Well, yes, two things. One is that there is under easements and land protection, a possible conservation initiative taking shape. And I would like to be intentionally vague at this point, but the concept is that we might have the opportunity to try to generate another kind of multi-party trail concept for easements, similar to the Great Brook idea. Very, very, very preliminary. But I just want to update people and say that.
I was just curious if there's something we need to know or do about that tonight.
Just light a candle and hope it takes shape. So it's not moving very fast, but I just want to mention it. And the second thing is kind of related to that, which is I feel badly that that and many other things are things that are not happening, because I'm spending all my time with this sort of foolishness. And the adjudicatory sessions for Northern Pass have been extended so that they're gonna go on, which means that I'll continue my purgatory for the foreseeable future.
But the silver lining means that they haven't reached a decision in favor,
Yeah,
so there is that.
Correct.
yeah.
And then unrelated to that, back in the days, foolishly, Lynn, I thought this was supposed to be done in August, which it was, before it was supposed to be done in July, which it was. Rachel and I made plans to not be here for a big chunk of time in September, so whether you were meeting on the 11th or 18th, I will not be available.
I see, okay. I'll poll folks on the next meeting and see what to do, I mean, because it sounds like you
So I
may
hope
not be
others
here
can
on
attend,
that.
because I'm gonna,
It depends, we'll be away, but I'm not sure if we get back that day, Monday or Tuesday. And also SEC is involved.
yeah, Eric's got the same purgatory assignment that I do.
Ben, you were gonna,
Oh, I was just gonna say, I called Frank Mitchell about the Curry easement, he wanted me to reach out to Paula Duchesne,
Dushana.
Dushana? Because the last time he was there, he said there were large parts of it he wasn't able to visit. So he wanted to revisit just kind of the strategy for getting into different parts of the property with her. So I'm going to talk to her next.
Great.
And good luck contacting her, it's elusive.
Okay.
I tried to reach her about the meeting tonight, and I left her 3 messages, so, because she's in a butter to some of this stuff.
Gotcha.
And I'll just give a quick update, very quick on a couple of things. I contacted Dan Kern about the Lindsay Flanders Trail extension. He said that was going to the Bear Paw Board. I have not heard back, so I emailed him again tonight, and we'll update you on that when I hear from him. We did hear for Project 31 that there will be a site visit by LCHIP to that property
Thank you.
in September. So I think that's positive. It's certainly not negative. And we are still waiting for status update on the Boisfort survey. Again, I emailed Dan about that, and he had not heard anything, and I've emailed him again, and I'm still waiting to hear.
Does he have a reason why, I mean,
The surveyor is behind or not doing his job or died. I mean, I don't know. The surveyor is not doing his thing.
is Dan helping to remind him that he has a responsibility?
That I can't speak to. Anything else? Then I vote that we adjourn this meeting.
Emerald ash borer in Deerfield, got the notice, all kinds of pictures, all kinds of information, but it is definitely in Deerfield now, so.
What part?
Well, we have information, so if anyone wants to see it after the meeting,
Oh.
it's here, and, I don't know if anything has been tacked up. I sent a copy of it came through, and I sent a copy to John Harrington,
Mm-hmm.
to alert that. I also put it specifically on the minutes, the public minutes that were, not minutes, on the postings of the agenda, so that someone might actually see it, and it will be in the Board of Selectmen's notes, so perhaps it will get mentioned. And if you'd like, I would be happy to tack this stuff up on the front board up there underneath where we keep our agenda and our meeting notices.
Could we get this into the forum? Go online?
Good, yeah.
Judy, who sent that notice out? that
It's from
cooperative
UNH Cooperative Extension.
Oh.
Which program does it say?
Forestry.
Okay.
It came from Karen Bennett, forestry specialist.
Okay.
There's the bad news.
Wow. That's Deerfield? No.
That's where it's all at now. I guess it came from Concord. It came down from, it was, well, we were warned, I think, last year or something, that was,
That orange area is not Deerfield, right? It's-
No, this is,
That's smaller, okay.
it's southern New Hampshire.
But Deerfield's confirmed?
Well, I'm trying to find
Mhm.
Deerfield on
Couple
here.
months ago.
Oh, Raymond.
it is.
Yes, there are,
No?
there are infested
Been on my
areas
trees for
in
a while,
Deerfield right
but I
here.
don't, so I'm not sure, but I can ask.
I'd like to
Actually,
know,
a
because
good-
I just hand split a bunch of stuff and I didn't see any.
No, I know, I've been,
Good chunk of Deerfield is in red here,
Huh.
which says generally infested area. Orange is potential expansion.
Candy is next.
Wow.
Okay, I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I just texted Charlie Marino just to let him know, make sure he understands that, yeah, he's here. I'm sure he
sure you
knows.
know.
So what's that mean? No firewood can go
Oh.
out of
Oh, hang
Deerfield,
on.
I think? Is that how they do it? Or is it by the